Chapter 30-74. The third prince was speechless and could only smile bitterly. Only now did he realize that Ji Tianqing's confidence came from his bones. He and Ji Tianqing were people from two different worlds. He was completely unable to understand where exactly Ji Tianqing's absolute confidence came from. After pausing for a moment, the third prince continued, "Tianqing, with your intelligence and methods, you could have used other methods. Spend more time, devise a more detailed plan, and use a gentler method." Without waiting for him to finish, Ji Tianqing smiled and asked, "Use a gentler method to obtain the sacred tree? Won't the end result be the same? As long as I snatch the sacred tree, I will be mortal enemies with the blood flame divine kingdom. Moreover, this divine blood ceremony is the best opportunity. Why should I waste so much time and effort on something that can be easily solved?" The third prince was speechless again and sighed inwardly. Yes. As long as you snatch the sacred tree, you will be mortal enemies with the divine kingdom. Even if I become the king, I will not forgive you. Otherwise, I will not be able to answer to my people, and I will not be able to face my ancestors. At this time, Ji Tianqing continued, "I have thought about it before. I have no enmity with the blood flame divine kingdom. I can pay the appropriate price or help the divine kingdom strengthen in exchange for the blood flame sacred tree. But this is not realistic. The king will not believe me. Even if I give him another divine kingdom, he will not give the sacred tree to me. So, I can only dispel these childish thoughts. As an expert, I will not waste words if I can make a move. I have already obtained the blood flame sacred tree and will be leaving the capital soon. For the sake of our past relationship, I will not harm the innocent and spare your father's life. He and the people of the capital will exchange their lives for the blood flame sacred tree. It is that simple. You spare my father's life?" The third prince asked in a strange tone, his expression very awkward. Obviously, Ji Tianqing was the one who was besieged and attacked by thousands of soldiers. Why did it feel like the tables had turned? It was as if he was the victor. At this moment, the second prince arrived just in time. He bowed to the monarch and asked about the situation briefly before flying towards Ji Tianqing. As soon as the two of them met, the second prince winked at Ji Tianqing and said with a playful smile, "You are really lawless. Today, you have pierced through the heavens. You will be remembered by history for the next 1,000 years. Second prince, you flatter me," Ji Tianqing said calmly. The second prince gave him a thumbs up and praised him sincerely, "Although you have committed such a capital crime, we must meet on the battlefield. But I still have to say this from the bottom of my heart, you're really awesome." Ji Tianqing nodded his head slightly and said, "You're still the one who's more clear-headed. You only look at the benefits and the situation, and aren't tied down by personal feelings. The one I'm most worried about is the third prince. He's a little indecisive." The second prince grinned coldly. "That's right. Therefore, all the civil and military officials in the imperial court secretly discussed, saying that Ben Wang was an ambitious and ruthless hero in troubled times, while third brother was a wise ruler in prosperous times. But in Ben Wang's eyes, he can only be a prince of peace. How can he compete with Ben Wang?" Ji Tianqing ignored him and turned to the third prince. "I know you're hesitant, but you must take action later and lead the imperial army to besiege me. If you want to keep your position as a prince, you must submit a proof of allegiance to the king. Moreover, you must sever all ties with me, only then can you prove your innocence to the people of divine kingdom." The third prince smiled bitterly and said, "Ben Wang understands what you're saying. Actually, you're more suited for power struggles than Ben Wang. But it's a pity that your heart is higher than the heavens, and you don't care about the throne of divine kingdom, right?" Ji Tianqing said with gratification, "Although your words are still conservative, it's already very rare for you to have made such progress." The third prince smiled awkwardly again, shocked by his confidence and domineering attitude. At this moment, the king lost his patience and asked sternly, "Third prince, How's your negotiation with the traitor? Why hasn't he knelt down to surrender and accept his death? The third prince knew that the time was up. He had to perform what he had to do. Therefore, he looked solemn and shouted sternly, "The traitor Tianqing stole the sacred tree and destroyed the foundation of divine kingdom. This is an unforgivable crime. Soldiers of the imperial army, immediately capture the traitor and hand him over to the king to serve as a warning to others." Although the third prince had ordered the imperial army to besiege Ji Tianqing in front of everyone. But he said to capture him alive, not to kill him on the spot. Obviously, he still couldn't bear to see Ji Tianqing die. When the second prince heard this, he sneered in his heart. "Third brother, you're too pedantic. Father is already dissatisfied with you, but you still have mercy in your heart. Aren't you courting death? How can you fight with Ben Wang with your soft-heartedness?" The king also understood the meaning of the third prince's words. He narrowed his eyes and his gaze became colder. He added and shouted sternly, "Everyone, attack and kill the traitor Tianqing on the spot." In this way, the imperial army and the palace experts no longer had any scruples. They all went all out and charged at Ji Tianqing without caring about the cost. Kill! Earth-shattering battle cries erupted. Thousands of imperial army and the palace experts all brandished their Kenshin weapons and released divine light that covered the sky and earth, drowning Ji Tianqing's figure. Seeing this scene, the king's lips curled into a cold, evil smile. The second prince raised his eyebrows and thought it was a pity. The third prince frowned and his emotions were complicated. Zhenhong's heart was filled with grief. She could no longer hold back the tears in her eyes as they slid down her cheeks. No matter what kind of person Ji Tianqing was in other people's eyes. At least in her eyes, he was the truest, most mysterious and noble young master, and she was indebted to him for giving her a new life. But now, it was too late to say anything. Under the attacks of thousands of people, Ji Tianqing would definitely die. After all, 80% of the thousands of people were level 8 or level 9 heavenly gods and more than 500 divine lords. Even the king couldn't withstand such a powerful attack. However, no one saw Ji Tianqing standing in the sky, looking around calmly and murmuring to himself. "I said I would spare your lives and I won't go back on my words." So, facing the first round of attacks from thousands of people, he chose to resist and didn't counterattack. Swish! Ji Tianqing floated into the divine pagoda the moment the sky was filled with attacks. Boom! Boom, boom, boom. In the next moment, thousands of divine light hit the divine tower and there was a deafening explosion. The colorful divine light covered the sky and the Soul Prayer Hall, the square, and the palace around it. The Soul Prayer Hall and the 10 miles around it were instantly leveled. The palace and the houses were no longer there, only a giant pit left. Ji Tianqing also disappeared. Jiutian 10 Absolute's tower also went underground and flew to the edge of the palace. In front of them was the defensive array of the palace. It was made up of 9 divine arrays and its power had reached the supreme grade of the monarch level. Ji Tianqing flew out of the divine tower and appeared at the gate of the palace. He clasped his hands and a sacred golden light appeared. World Cut. Chapter 3075. Ever since he came to the divine realm, Ji Tianqing rarely used the power of the 5 elements world. After all, the power of the world was too terrifying. When he was in the lower world, the world slash he used was enough to cut a star in half. Therefore, he didn't dare to use it in the divine realm. He didn't want to cause too much of a disaster and attract the attention of many overlords. Because, other than him, no one else could control the power of the world. Slash! As Ji Tianqing shouted, a holy light blade tens of thousands of feet long, as dazzling as the sun, slashed the defensive array of the royal palace. With a loud boom, a huge gully was cut open on the spot on the 7-colored barrier that looked like a canopy in the sky. Dense cracks spread out from the ravine, spreading in all directions. The entire formation was shaking violently, emitting cracking noises as it was on the verge of collapsing and dispersing. After the bright golden light blade broke the defensive array, it flew a few hundred miles to the south. It followed the bluestone road in the center of the royal palace and formed a straight line, leaving a huge ravine on the ground like an abyss. The entire royal palace was split in half by this abyss. While it was shaking violently, a huge amount of dust flew up. After the holy light blade flew out of the royal palace, it split a dozen mountains and extended for 8,000 miles before gradually dissipating. Such an earth-shattering commotion woke up the entire royal city and frightened the millions of people. But Ji Tianqing's control of his power was perfect. Even though the power of the world slash was so terrifying, it didn't kill anyone. Swoosh! His body flashed and he passed through the gap in the royal palace's array and left the royal palace. He flew into the sky, crossed the panicked royal palace and flew into the distance. Before he left, he turned around to take a look. The thousands of people in the palace, including the monarch, were all dumbfounded and rooted to the ground. Everyone was dumbfounded. Not only was he safe and sound, but he also broke the royal palace's defense with one move and slashed the royal palace in half. Such apocalyptic might was simply not something a divine lord could achieve. Everyone felt a chill down their spines and a chill ran down their spines. Many people had the same thought. If that move of his had not been aimed at the palace's array but at us instead, who would have survived? Could it be that he had shown mercy to us? How is this possible? While everyone was still in a daze, Ji Tianqing turned and left. The monarch was the first to react. He was so angry that his face turned green. He roared loudly, "Chase! Even if we have to chase him to the ends of the earth, we must kill him." Many imperial guards and experts rushed out of the palace and chased after Ji Tianqing. The monarch personally led thousands of people and charged over in a grandiose manner. The two princes did not dare to fall behind and hurriedly followed. Zhenhong burst into tears of joy. His hanging heart finally settled down, and he hurriedly followed them. After escaping from King's City, Ji Tianqing flew all the way to the south at lightning speed. The imperial army and royal palace experts were quickly left in the dust. Only the monarch took the lead and chased after them furiously. 1,000 miles behind him were the two princes and several high divine lords. Before he knew it, 4 hours had passed. It was close to noon, and the sun was high in the sky. At this moment, Ji Tianqing was 200,000 miles away from King's City and was in a vast mountain range. Looking around, there was an endless mountain range that stretched to the horizon, but there was no city in sight. White clouds surrounded him, and the blazing sun hung high in the blue sky. Ji Tianqing stopped, still calm and composed. He turned and looked at the monarch who was chasing after him. Swoosh! The monarch stopped 100,000 feet away, panting in rage and glaring at him with bloodshot eyes. Renegade! Don't even think about escaping from me. Even if you run to the ends of the earth, I will use the power of the divine kingdom to kill you and take back the sacred tree. The monarch held the blood sea stupa in his left hand and the dark golden divine sword in his right. He pointed at Ji Tianqing and roared with killing intent. There were only the two of them in a radius of 10,000 miles. The two princes and a few high divine lords were still 10,000 miles away and had not caught up yet. Ji Tianqing looked at the monarch calmly and said, "I have the sacred tree, and I will never return it. You should give up. Also, I held back just now and did not hurt any innocent people. If you insist on pestering me, don't blame me for being rude." Ha ha ha. What a joke. The monarch laughed in anger and cursed, "Renegade, are you still going to play dumb? I said long ago that the sacred tree is the foundation of the divine kingdom, the foundation of the divine kingdom. Even if I die here, I will never let you take the sacred tree. Today, it's either you die or I die. There is no other choice." There was something he did not say, but both of them knew. If Ji Tianqing really took the sacred tree, the news would spread throughout the divine kingdom, and he would have to abdicate as a divine lord. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, "Fine, since you are so stubborn, I will fulfill your wish." With that, he waved the burial of heaven with his right hand and used sword-breaking 9 heavens to attack the monarch. The dazzling golden sword, which was 10,000 feet tall, fell from the sky with a divine power that could destroy everything. The monarch did not back down. He waved his divine sword and used his ultimate skill, charging at Ji Tianqing without any regard for his own safety. Bam! 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 Boom! Boom! The sky full of sword lights clashed, creating a deafening sound. The two of them had only exchanged 4 moves, and the already injured monarch was sent flying again by Ji Tianqing. His injuries were even worse. The monarch vomited blood and was extremely angry. He put away his divine sword and waved the floating blood sea toward Ji Tianqing. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing frowned, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He waved the burial of heaven again, absorbing the light of the 5 elements world, and slashed out a dazzling golden sword with all his strength. Swoosh! The divine sword light, which was 10,000 feet long, cut through all obstacles, split the blood waves in the sky, and hit the monarch. Bam! There was a dull sound, and the monarch's left arm and left leg were cut off. Blood splattered all over the sky as he flew back in a sorry state. The sword light formed by the power of the world flew for another 6,000 miles and split open 8 mountains before gradually dissipating. Plop! After flying for 1,000 miles, the monarch fell into the broken mountains and was buried by the ruins. After suffering such heavy injuries, he almost lost half of his body and couldn't help but groan in pain. However, he gritted his teeth and struggled to climb out of the ruins to attack again. However, as soon as he left the ruins, a cold black sword was pressed against his forehead. The monarch looked up and saw Ji Tianqing looking down at him. The burial of heaven shone with a faint black light and emitted a cold aura of death, which made the monarch feel cold all over. The monarch opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he swallowed his words. He had already lost. If he said anything more, it would only make him look ridiculous. Ji Tianqing said expressionlessly, "This time, I will spare your life and the lives of 5 million people in the royal city. I have already fulfilled my promise. Your lives in exchange for the sacred tree. We are even. If you continue to argue, you will definitely die." Chapter 3076. After saying that, Ji Tianqing put away the sword of burial of heaven, turned around, and left. The monarch stood in the ruins in a daze. He looked like he had lost his soul. A strong sense of defeat and humiliation welled up in his heart. He could not understand how he had lost so thoroughly. Previously in the Blood Flame's secret realm, he had fought Ji Tianqing for several hours. Am I supposed to admit defeat just like that and let him take the sacred tree? No. Impossible. That's the foundation of the divine nation. It's my life. I may have lost to him, but I still have the entire divine nation. Even if I have to gather all the experts in the kingdom, I'll tear him to pieces and avenge my humiliation. At that thought, the monarch immediately took out a few communication jade slips and sent out a few orders. He wanted to gather all the experts in the divine nation and mobilize all the higher divine lords to encircle and annihilate Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing could not be allowed to leave the Blood Flame divine nation alive. Ji Tianqing was only 3,000 miles away when the monarch sent out the orders. Suddenly, a cold voice rang out from the sky. "Despicable bastard! How dare you run away after committing such a heinous crime?" It was the voice of a young man. It was cold and murderous, containing a lofty dignity. When the voice reverberated in the sky, a ball of 5-colored divine light descended from the sky and blocked Ji Tianqing's path. After the divine light dissipated, a figure appeared. The newcomer was a great Yen divine tribe youth who was nearly 10 feet tall and wore a black dragon robe with golden patterns. He had a head full of red hair and a refined and handsome face. He exuded a noble aura. It was Grand Prince Lien. He stood proudly in the sky with his hands behind his back. He looked coldly at Ji Tianqing with a disdainful sneer on his lips. His expression was as though he was saying to Ji Tianqing, "You've finally gotten what you deserve. You brat, you've finally fallen into this king's hands." Ji Tianqing also looked at Grand Prince Lien. He sneered and said, "You've been waiting for me, but I've also been waiting for you. I thought you'd appear in the royal city. I didn't expect you to be even more patient than I imagined, and your schemes are even more vicious. You actually waited until now to show yourself. You are indeed vicious." Before the operation, Ji Tianqing had predicted that Prince Lien would take the opportunity to make a move. This was indeed the case. Moreover, Prince Lien was not in a hurry to make a move in Imperial City. He had to wait until the monarch was severely injured before he, coincidentally, appeared to kill Ji Tianqing. His sinister intentions were clear as day. As expected, the monarch immediately frowned and tried to figure out what Ji Tianqing meant. Prince Lien furrowed his brows and hurriedly bowed to the monarch. He said in a clear voice, "Your Majesty, I came to help as soon as I received the news, but I was still a step too late. I'm very sorry. But rest assured, Your Majesty, with this king here, I will not let the traitor escape, nor will I let the sacred tree wander outside." In fact, Prince Lien's status was half a level higher than the monarch's. Since Prince Lien had changed the topic and solemnly expressed his stance, the monarch could only cup his hands and return the gesture. "I was careless and was actually plotted against by the traitor. I'm really ashamed and have made a fool of myself in front of Prince Lien. Since Prince Lien is so righteous and is willing to kill the traitor, I am very grateful." The monarch thought that even if Prince Lien had a plot or a motive, it was not important. At least, Prince Lien was more powerful. If he could successfully kill Ji Tianqing and take back the blood flame sacred tree, it would be a great blessing. At this moment, the second and third princes rushed to the scene with 5 imperial army commanders. There was a dazzling flash of white light and 6 figures appeared on the scene. The leader was the 5th prince. He sat on the lotus platform with a pale face and his legs were still empty. His injuries had recovered slightly and he was not in a serious condition, but he could not participate in the battle. The other 5 were the upper divine monarchs under Prince Lien. The leader was that 8th stage realm purple-robed elderly man, and the other 2 ferocious-looking men were still suffering from the lethal poison. With so many experts arriving, the area immediately became lively. Prince Lien stood in front of Ji Tianqing while the monarch guarded Ji Tianqing's back. The 3 princes and many upper divine monarchs stood to the left and right respectively. Ji Tianqing was surrounded in 4 directions. The monarch circulated his energy to suppress his injuries and frowned at the 5th prince. He asked, "Little 5th, why are you here instead of recuperating?" The 5th prince looked at Ji Tianqing with a sinister smile and said in a mocking tone, "If I miss such an exciting show, won't I regret it for the rest of my life? Moreover, this bastard has caused me to be in such a miserable state. If I can't see him being torn into pieces with my own eyes, how can I dispel the hatred in my heart?" The 5th prince's eyes and tone were filled with hatred and resentment. It made one shudder. The monarch frowned and felt uncomfortable. As the monarch of a country, he did not want his successor to be such a vengeful person. But with so many experts in front of them, he could not blame the 5th prince. Therefore, the monarch stared sharply at Ji Tianqing and asked in a dignified tone, "Traitor. Things have come to this, do you still want to struggle?" Prince Lien smiled confidently and said to Ji Tianqing, "Bastard, why aren't you kneeling and begging for surrender? Are you waiting for me to do it myself?" The 5th prince revealed a sinister smile and growled with a bloodthirsty face, "Bastard, don't think that you can die so easily. I'll cut your body 108,000 times to vent my hatred." The second and third princes looked indifferent. They turned their heads and did not look at Ji Tianqing's reaction. They did not say anything either. Seeing everyone's reaction, Ji Tianqing shook his head. "Other than Prince Lien, you can cause me some trouble. Just based on you bunch of clay chickens and pottery dogs, you dare to make this sovereign surrender?" He smiled and said to the monarch, "Monarch, I spared your life just now. We're even now. Since you still want to pester me, you can sleep here forever." He looked at the fifth prince and sneered, "I was thinking about finding a chance to get rid of you. Since you're so sensible and delivered yourself to me, I don't have to waste my time. A family should be neat and tidy. With you accompanying your father, he won't be lonely on the road to the netherworld." The fifth prince and the monarch's expressions changed immediately. They were so angry that they almost went berserk. "Bastard! You lowly reptile!" The fifth prince cursed with a twisted face. The monarch was also furious. He laughed in extreme anger and said, "If I don't punish a heinous traitor like you and torture your divine soul for 10,000 years, how can I convince the public? Kill! Everyone, attack together and kill him." Following the monarch's order, the two princes and several commanders of the imperial army brandished their swords and sabers and attacked Ji Tianqing. Prince Lien also attacked personally. He waved his hand and blue flames formed thousands of sharp blades to strangle Ji Tianqing. Of the 5 monarchs under his command, 2 were protecting the fifth prince while the other 3 attacked. Instantly, Ji Tianqing was surrounded by 11 high-level monarchs and fell into a life-and-death situation. Especially when Prince Lien, a level 9 divine monarch, was among the 11 experts. This was the most dangerous battle he had ever fought since he entered the God realm. Chapter 3077. 11 experts besieged Ji Tianqing. Prince Lien was a 9th heaven monarch god. If Ji Tianqing fought them head-on, he would die. Even if he used the 9th heaven 10 absolutes pagoda, he would only be able to defend himself. Therefore, when the experts besieged him, he had already used the law of space and teleported 300 miles to the east. The group of people in the east was the second prince, the third prince, and the 4 imperial army commanders. Not only were they weaker, but the 2 princes would also not kill them. Therefore, Ji Tianqing easily broke through their defense line and teleported to the mountain peak in the distance. Then, he teleported away without looking back. Swoosh! Swoosh! He was enveloped by the white light of space and kept flashing between heaven and earth. In the blink of an eye, he had teleported a few thousand miles. Seeing this, the monarch was furious. "Go after him. If he escapes, I will punish the both of you." The monarch had obviously put the blame on the 2 princes. The 2 princes did not kill him, but they had put up a good show and put in a lot of effort. The monarch did not ask for the truth and just threw the blame on them. The 2 brothers felt wronged and wronged. Swoosh! Swoosh! The monarch took the lead, leading 2 princes and a few commanders of the imperial army to chase after Ji Tianqing, regardless of everyone else. However, Grand Prince Lien chased after him unhurriedly. He even sent a voice transmission to the 5 divine lords under his command. "Everyone, be careful. That bastard is very cunning. He must be trying to stretch the battle line and destroy us one by one." The monarchs felt the same and nodded to show that they understood. The facts proved that Prince Lien was right. Ji Tianqing was not running away. Instead, he disintegrated the encirclement and spread out to destroy it. When he teleported away, he secretly used the law of poison and left an invisible poison in the air. Of course, it was the kind of poison that was very subtle and not easy to detect. The monarch was seriously injured and the 4 imperial army commanders were slightly weaker, so it was very easy for them to be poisoned. Moreover, the monarch was in a hurry to kill Ji Tianqing and was afraid that he would escape. In a full pursuit, the monarch's guard was lowered. Soon, 15 minutes passed. Ji Tianqing had continuously teleported 90,000 miles. His divine power was greatly depleted, and his face was a little pale. He calculated the time and realized that the poison was about to take effect, so he slowed down. When he released his divine sense to check the situation behind him, however, he discovered that the person closest to him was Prince Lien. The two of them were only 20 miles apart. However, the king, the two princes, and the 4 commanders of the imperial army were still thousands of miles away. Magic blade hover. Prince Lien looked at Ji Tianqing with a cold smile. He waved his palms and sent out a sky full of light blades. More than 3,000 flashing golden light blades enveloped Ji Tianqing like countless guillotines, carrying a brilliant divine might. Ji Tianqing did not dare to underestimate him. He quickly used the celestial dragon tyrant body and raised his combat power to the extreme. He also brandished the sword of burial of heaven, slashing out sword lights that blotted out the sky, blocking Grand Prince Lien's attack. Bang 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 bang. The sky full of light blades collided with each other, creating a deafening sound that reverberated in the sky. The sword lights and light blades collapsed one after another, bursting out divine light fragments that blotted out the sky. Although Ji Tianqing gave it his all, he was still slightly inferior and was sent flying. After all, he had just broken through to the 5th degree not long ago. As for Prince Lien, he had broken through to the 9th degree many years ago. It was too difficult for Ji Tianqing to defeat him. Swoosh! Ji Tianqing had just retreated 100 miles away when he stabilized himself. However, Prince Lien chased after him and sent out dozens of mountain-sized fist shadows. Every fist shadow contained a faint blue flame that intimidated Ji Tianqing's divine soul, causing his consciousness to blur and become dizzy. Obviously, these fist shadows contained a lot of law power that specifically countered the soul. Ji Tianqing could only be cautious and keep his soul clear. He also used the Dragon Elephant Divine Fist and the Celestial Dragon Proud Slash. Boom boom boom. All sorts of divine abilities collided with each other, causing another earth-shattering explosion as they exploded into fragments that filled the sky. Ji Tianqing was still no match for Prince Lien and was sent flying another 100 miles into the majestic mountain range. He regained his composure and rushed out of the ruins. At this moment, the 8th degree realm purple-robed old man suddenly appeared and brandished his saber diagonally, slashing out 2 violent blood blades. Ji Tianqing was caught off guard and it was too late for him to dodge. At the critical moment, he risked his own injuries and used all his strength to launch a counterattack. River of Stars break. He resisted the 2 blood blades and held the sword of burial of heaven with both hands. He slashed out 1,000 feet long starlight towards the purple-robed elder. Bang bang. A dull sound exploded as golden light flashed and blood splattered. Ji Tianqing was struck by the 2 blood blades, 2 wounds were left on his back, and countless golden lights splashed out. The purple-robed elder was also cut in half by the starlight and his legs flew out and shattered into pieces. The result was horrifying. Ji Tianqing paid the price of a light injury to severely injure the purple-robed elder and cut him in half. The purple-robed elder was sent flying and fell into the ruins. He screamed in pain. However, Prince Lien didn't frown. His eyes were still cold and clear as he continued to attack Ji Tianqing. To him, it didn't matter if his subordinates were injured. As long as he could injure Ji Tianqing, it was fine. Limitless Heaven Tilting Palm. Prince Lien's robe fluttered and his body emitted a 7-colored divine light. He waved his palms and blocked the sky for 1,000 miles. Ji Tianqing had nowhere to hide and could only fight back with all his might. Limitless Heaven Capturing Dragon Palm. In the past, when he was weak, he could only use this technique together with Yun Yao. Presently, he was already a middle-level divine lord. Executing this divine ability in ultimate skill again, its might was formidable to the extreme. Above the ninth heaven, two enormous golden dragon claws that blotted out the sun appeared and slammed toward Prince Lien. Boom boom boom. The golden dragon claws were invincible and destroyed all the palms in the sky. However, Prince Lien changed his move in time and punched twice, shattering the golden dragon claws. The two of them were actually evenly matched in strength in this clash. Prince Lien sneered. Ha ha ha. You've grown very fast. You've only entered the Blood Flame secret realm once, and you're already on par with me. If I don't kill you today, you'll become a huge threat in the future. Although Prince Lien was very confident and domineering, he was very shrewd and cunning. He had never underestimated Ji Tianqing. Instead, he valued him very much. Therefore, he was determined to get rid of Ji Tianqing today. At this moment, the king, the two princes and the 4 imperial army commanders finally arrived. Kill! The monarch roared angrily. Without another word, he waved the Blood Sea Pagoda and charged towards Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing stared at him, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a sneer. Seeing that the king was coming at him aggressively, he didn't counterattack. Instead, he silently said, "Explode." Thus, the invisible poison that had invaded the king's body was instantly detonated. The king's body suddenly swelled, and all his veins bulged. Black smoke rose from his body and black blood spurted out. Just as he charged in front of Ji Tianqing, he came to an abrupt stop and fell from the sky. Chapter 3078. Plop. The king fell from the sky and smashed into the ruins of the mountain range, causing dust to fly everywhere. By the time he crawled out of the ruins, he was already beyond recognition. It was a tragic sight. Not only was his body as black as charcoal, but it was also emitting thick black smoke. All his skin and flesh were rapidly rotting, revealing his blackened divine bones. His meridians were broken, and his flesh and blood had turned into mud, mixing with the mud and covering his body. The unparalleled pain made him tremble like a sieve. His throat, which had long been twisted, also let out a muffled roar. The lethal poison was rapidly corroding his divine body and invading his godhead. His divine body would be destroyed without a doubt, and his godhead would also be severely damaged. This ending was already irreversible. The two princes and the 4 imperial army commanders were all dumbfounded, their faces filled with horror. They had never imagined that the king, who had been so majestic just a moment ago, would be in such a miserable state now. What did Ji Tianqing do? The two princes knew Ji Tianqing the best. They immediately reacted and exclaimed in unison, "Lethal poison. You poisoned the king." At the thought of this, the two princes and the 4 imperial army commanders' expressions changed. They didn't dare to attack Ji Tianqing and hurriedly checked themselves to see if they were poisoned. At this moment, Ji Tianqing detonated the lethal poison in the 4 imperial army commanders' bodies. Bam! Bam! There were a few more muffled sounds. The 4 imperial army commanders' bodies stiffened, and they spat out pitch-black arrows of blood. The lethal poison in their bodies also erupted. Their flesh and blood turned black, and black smoke rose from them. Their meridians were broken, and their flesh and blood were corroded. They suffered inhuman pain and screamed as they fell to the ground. The two princes didn't need to look to know that their fates were not much better than the king's. Tianqing. How can you be so vicious? How can you be so cruel to us? The third prince was shocked and angry as he roared at Ji Tianqing. The second prince was also uneasy as he stared at Ji Tianqing warily. Unexpectedly, Ji Tianqing glanced at the two of them and said, "You are poisoned, but as long as I don't detonate the poison, you will be fine." Hearing his words, the two princes heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly retreated. He didn't dare to attack Ji Tianqing, but he couldn't just stand by and watch. Thus, the two of them flew to the monarch's side to help him suppress the poison. Ji Tianqing wanted to take this opportunity to kill the monarch, but Prince Lien attacked again and sent him flying. Plop! He rolled and crashed into a mountain, causing half of the mountain to collapse. When he flew out of the ruins, his body was already shining with golden light, and divine blood was gushing out of his mouth and nose. This time, Ji Tianqing suffered an internal injury, and the injury was not light. Before he could retaliate, the 4 divine lords rushed to the battlefield with the 5th prince. One of them took care of the 5th prince, while the other 3 attacked him without hesitation. Ji Tianqing frowned. His eyes flashed with cold killing intent. He immediately used his trump card. Sky Vanquishing Sword Array. He used all his strength and even drew on the power of the sacred tree stored in the heaven-mending orb to release 20,000 giant swords. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The gigantic 5-colored swords that blotted out the sky formed a sword net with a radius of 10,000 miles, sealing off this area. The giant swords flew back and forth, emitting a blinding divine light and releasing a divine power and sword will that could suppress heaven and earth. Ji Tianqing split half of his attention to control the 10,000 swords to block Prince Lien. The other half of his attention was on the 5th prince and the 4 divine lords. Die! He stared coldly at the 5th prince and shouted. With a thought, he controlled thousands of 5-colored divine swords and turned them into a hurricane of swords that charged toward the 5th prince. The 5th prince's injuries had not healed. Although he could move freely, he couldn't participate in the battle. Seeing the devastating hurricane of swords coming toward him, he was so scared that his soul almost left his body. Retreat! Retreat! He tried his best to escape, but he was too slow. The divine lord who was taking care of him was also worried. He didn't care about anything else and tried to escape with him. However, the combined speed of the 2 of them was not as fast as the hurricane of swords. The 2 of them were about to be swept by the hurricane of swords and killed on the spot. The divine lord who was taking care of the 5th prince even wanted to jump out and block the hurricane of swords with his own body to protect the 5th prince. Seeing this, a thought flashed through Ji Tianqing's mind. I knew it. Prince Lien not only treats the 5th prince as his nephew, but also as a puppet to control the bloody flame divine country. He's protecting the 5th prince very carefully. At this moment, the 3 divine lords gave up on attacking Ji Tianqing and joined forces to block the hurricane of swords. Bang, bang, bang. The 3 of them used all their strength and performed all kinds of divine powers, trying to destroy the hurricane of swords. However, the hundreds of divine abilities and ultimate skills were all shattered. The 3 of them couldn't dodge in time and were swept by the hurricane of swords. Swish, 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 swish. The 3 Sir gods were engulfed by the storm of swords. They had to endure the attacks of the divine swords. Shards and blood splattered everywhere as they screamed in agony. After a while, when they used all their strength to rush out of the hurricane of swords, they were already covered in wounds and didn't look human anymore. The armor and clothes he was wearing had all turned into powder. All of them had broken limbs and were covered in wounds. Their divine bones and organs were exposed. After suffering such heavy injuries, their divine bodies were not far from collapsing. Fortunately, Prince Lien had been attacking Ji Tianqing fiercely and gradually used all his strength and trump cards. Ji Tianqing was under a lot of pressure and had to fight with all his strength. He only managed to block Prince Lien's fierce attacks with the help of the sword array. The 3 Sir gods finally had a chance to catch their breaths. They retreated far away with lingering fear. The 4 of them joined forces to protect the 5th prince and retreated to the edge of the sword array. The purple-robed elder who had been cut in half at the waist also temporarily suppressed his injuries and protected the 5th prince with them. The 6 of them worked together to block the swords that filled the sky. It was very difficult for them to hold on. On the other side of the sword array, the monarch, the 2 princes and the 4 commanders of the imperial army were also in a miserable state. At this moment, the monarch's divine body was almost completely corroded by the poison and only his skeleton was left. However, countless swords came and cut the skeleton into pieces. His divine body was completely destroyed and his divine spark was also severely damaged. He could only escape from his body and hide in the Blood Sea Pagoda. The Blood Sea Pagoda was a supreme monarch-level divine artifact. It could block thousands of swords and still hold on tenaciously. The 4 commanders of the Imperial Army were also badly corroded by the poison and swept by the swords. They didn't hold on for long before their divine bodies were completely destroyed. Their divine sparks also escaped from their bodies and hid beside the 2 princes, hoping that the 2 princes could save them. However, the 2 princes couldn't even take care of themselves and were also badly injured by the giant swords in the sky. If it weren't for their life-saving divine artifacts, their divine bodies would have been destroyed long ago. How could they have the time to save the divine sparks of the 4 commanders? Just like this, they hid in the corner of the sword array and stubbornly held on while trembling. The center of the sword array became the battlefield of Ji Tianqing and Prince Lien. These 2 strongest experts were using all their skills and fighting without regard for anything else. Chapter 3079. Ji Tianqing could severely injure the monarch and many high-level divine lords with the sky-destroying sword formation. However, Grand Prince Lien was indeed extremely powerful. He also mastered more than 100 divine Dao laws, more than 300 divine powers, and 3 supreme-grade monarch divine artifacts. Compared to the monarch, he was more than 1 level stronger. Ji Tianqing had used up too much of his divine power. Even with the support of the Heaven-Mending Pearl, he could quickly replenish his divine power. However, he was limited by his cultivation level and could not defeat Grand Prince Lien. Even if he gave it his all, he could only fight Grand Prince Lien to a draw. However, most of the time, he was still at a disadvantage and was constantly injured. Even with the celestial dragon tyrant body, his 100 feet tall body was covered in wounds and golden divine blood kept spilling out. On the other hand, Grand Prince Lien was not injured and was still in peak condition with abundant divine power. Ji Tianqing cursed in his heart. If the monarch had stopped him 1 day later, he would have cultivated in the Blood Flame's secret realm for 1 more day. The result would have been different. As long as he broke through to the 6th level of the Divine Lord realm, he would have a chance to defeat Grand Prince Lien. Unfortunately, there was no chance today. He made up his mind to take care of the others today and seek revenge on Grand Prince Lien later. Grand Prince Lien was not in a hurry. He attacked in an orderly manner. He stared at Ji Tianqing and sneered. Tianqing, you are indeed the #1 genius in this small blood flame divine kingdom. However, you are just a frog at the bottom of a well. How would you know how many crouching tigers and hidden dragons there are in the great Yan Empire? Now, do you understand the difference between you and me? Stop resisting. Your mission is complete. It's time to die. Ji Tianqing blocked his attacks and sneered. Ha ha ha. I'm a frog at the bottom of a well. That's hilarious. It's just the great Yan Empire. It's no different from a pond in my eyes. I'm a great rock that soars in the 9 heavens. How can a sparrow like you compare to me? Forget it. I can't be bothered to talk to you about this. Ji Tianqing did not bother to talk to Grand Prince Lien. Even the Grand Prince was too lazy to argue. He was still high and mighty. After a pause, Ji Tianqing continued, as for the mission you mentioned. Are you going to use me to reshuffle the Blood Flame Divine Kingdom? I have already destroyed the monarch's divine body and severely damaged his godhead, making him unable to take charge of the situation. The 2 princes were also heavily injured, and their forces were greatly weakened. With your support, the 5th prince will soon be able to take over the Blood Flame Divine Kingdom. Your goal will be achieved smoothly, right? Prince Lien didn't deny it. He sneered and asked, isn't that so? If a traitor like you hadn't appeared, it would have taken some effort for this prince's plan to succeed. Now that you've helped this king get rid of the obstacle, this king has to thank you. Actually, this prince really admires you. Your intelligence and methods are almost on par with this prince's. However, it is precisely because you are too outstanding that this king will not recruit you. I only want to get rid of you as soon as possible. After all, even I can't control a renegade like you. Ji Tianqing had a playful smile on his face as he shook his head repeatedly. It's rare to see someone as narcissistic as you. One day, this king will let you know. A firefly cannot compete with the brightness of the moon. What you said today is laughable. Prince Lien frowned and was about to retort. At this moment, Ji Tianqing secretly controlled the sword formation to kill the fifth prince and the others. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Around the fifth prince and the others, 3,000 divine swords suddenly flew out and formed a small sword formation. Everyone was caught off guard. Before they could dodge, they were enveloped by the sword formation. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. 7-colored divine light danced in the air, sword light crisscrossed, and flesh and blood splattered everywhere. The screams of the fifth prince and the 5 divine monarchs came out from the sword formation. This scene made Prince Lien's eyebrows twitch violently. His entire face turned ashen. Formation within a formation. You have been planning this for a long time. You have been secretly setting up this formation for a long time. Prince Lien immediately understood. Ji Tianqing was talking to him to distract him. Secretly, he had secretly gathered 3,000 divine swords and hid them around the fifth prince and the others. At the critical moment, the 3,000 giant swords instantly formed a formation, catching the fifth prince and the others off guard. How ruthless! Grand Prince Lien had no time to be angry. He immediately gave up on attacking Ji Tianqing and teleported to the front of the sword array. He hurriedly used his divine powers to destroy the small sword formation and save the fifth prince. Even if the 5 divine monarchs under his command were killed, he had to save the fifth prince. The fifth prince was not only his nephew, but also the most important chess piece in his hand. If the fifth prince died, his plan would be ruined. How could he control the bloody flame divine kingdom? He could not possibly be the king, right? He would not have the rightful title, and he would be labeled as a thief of the country. Moreover, he was a criminal of the great Yan Empire. If he took over the bloody flame divine kingdom and proclaimed himself the king, the great Yan Emperor would not forgive him. Boom! 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 Prince Lien waved his hands crazily and sent out hundreds of giant purple blades. Soon, the small sword formation was destroyed. The 3,000 giant swords were smashed into pieces and scattered in all directions. Prince Lien's face froze when he saw what had happened. A towering rage rose in him. The fifth prince, the purple-robed elder, and the 2 divine monarchs had all been smashed into pieces by the sword formation. Not only were their divine bodies destroyed, but their godheads were also shattered into dozens of pieces. The 4 godhead pieces were mixed together, and it was difficult to distinguish them. Only one divine monarch was lucky. His divine body was destroyed, but his godhead was preserved. Of course, his godhead was also badly damaged, and he was in a coma. Grand Prince Lien almost went mad with anger. His eyes turned blood red as he muttered to himself, how could this be? I had asked everyone to protect him. How could he still be killed? I was about to succeed. Why did it all go to waste? Tianqing. You and I are irreconcilable. At first, he was still muttering, but in the end, he was roaring and yelling. Prince Lien could no longer maintain his composure and confidence. He was so angry that he went berserk. You despicable beast! I'm going to turn you into ashes. Prince Lien was so angry that he was trembling all over. He roared hysterically. He abruptly turned around and charged towards Ji Tianqing with the crimson flames of slaughter. At this moment, Ji Tianqing was doing something else very important. He controlled the heaven-destroying sword formation and threw the 2 heavily injured and bloody princes out of the formation. Then, he used his ultimate skill to capture the Blood Sea Buddha. The second prince was the most seriously injured. He was already on the verge of losing consciousness. The third prince was slightly better. He was still conscious. The two brothers flew out of the formation and landed in the mountains with a loud thud, sending dirt flying everywhere. The third prince heaved a sigh of relief. He took out a divine pill and muttered, "He showed mercy in the end." Just as he finished speaking, he suddenly thought of a problem. Chapter 3080. The third prince suddenly realized what Ji Tianqing was up to. However, both he and the second prince were severely injured and could not do anything. Charge into the sword formation to save the monarch. That was not realistic at all. Firstly, they could not charge in. Secondly, even if they did, they would be killed on the spot by the sword formation. Moreover, there was no real father-son relationship between them and the monarch. It was more about power struggles and conflicts of interest. It was impossible for them to sacrifice their lives to save the monarch. Even for someone as ambitious as the second prince. The monarch being killed by Ji Tianqing was the best outcome. Inside the heaven-destroying sword formation, Ji Tianqing was in the middle of thousands of swords. He held the Bloody Sea Pagoda in his left hand and a blood-red divinity in his right. This was the monarch's divinity. Its surface was full of cracks. The monarch was severely injured. His divinity was severely damaged, and he was on the verge of losing consciousness. He hid in the Bloody Sea Pagoda and was not killed by the thousands of swords. He was lucky enough to survive. However, Ji Tianqing easily captured the Bloody Sea Pagoda. He used a little trick and pulled out the monarch's divinity. "I spared your life and gave you a chance, but you were stubborn. Goodbye." Ji Tianqing looked at the monarch's divinity and muttered to himself expressionlessly. Then, he clenched his right hand. Crack! The destructive power instantly crushed the monarch's divinity. The monarch of the theocracy was dead. He was dead. Ji Tianqing put the Bloody Sea Pagoda and the divinity fragments into the infinite space ring. He was about to plunder the divinity fragments of the other powerful fighters when Prince Lien charged over. Prince Lien seemed to have gone mad. He was wearing a black divine armor with golden patterns and holding the 7-star silver moon divine spear in his hand. He unleashed a divine art that covered the sky. He unleashed his combat power to the maximum. He used more than 30 divine Tao laws and swore to tear Ji Tianqing into pieces. Now, only he and Ji Tianqing were left in the heaven-destroying sword formation. The other powerful fighters were all dead, and the two princes were thrown out of the sword formation. Ji Tianqing's plan had succeeded. It was time to retreat. He stared at Prince Lien, unhurriedly gripping his sword with both hands, and viciously slashed out with his strongest attack. Sword of Destruction. It still absorbed the power of the 5 elements world, slashing out endless golden light, destroying the heavens and the earth. The power of the world could create a world, and it could also destroy a world. This strongest killing move consumed twice as much world energy as the world slash. Ji Tianqing wouldn't be able to use it a second time in a short period of time. Not only would it harm oneself, but it would also affect the 5 elements world, leading to accidents and disasters. Therefore, this sword strike contained his strongest strength and surging killing intent. Boom! With an earth-shattering boom, the sword of Armageddon cut through the divine light and shadow in the sky and hit Prince Lien hard. Prince Lien's golden patterned black divine armor immediately cracked, and a long crack appeared on it. His entire body was sent flying, and his face was twisted in pain. Blood spurted out from his mouth and nose, and he couldn't help but let out a miserable cry. Swoosh! Prince Lien was sent flying 1,000 miles by the heaven-destroying sword formation, and he was attacked by countless sword radiances before finally falling onto the ruins. When he flew back into the sky, there was already a hole in his supreme-grade monarch divine armor, and there were more than 10 cracks on it. There was a deep wound from his chest to his abdomen, and his divine bones and organs could be seen clearly. Streams of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth and dripped onto his body. His hair was disheveled, and his face was covered in blood. He no longer had the elegance and calmness from before. He had lost. He had lost to Ji Tianqing, whom he had looked down upon, belittled, and looked down upon. Moreover, he had been severely injured by a single slash. If not for the 7-star Silver Moon Divine Spear, which had neutralized 40% of the power of the Sword of Armageddon, and the protection of the black gold divine armor, he would have been cut in half. The unparalleled sense of defeat and humiliation made Prince Lien's face contort, and his entire body trembled violently. He stared at Ji Tianqing with bloodshot eyes and roared in a low voice, "In 300 years, you are the first person to injure me so severely." Ji Tianqing had used his ultimate move, and his divine soul and body were exhausted. He wanted to find a place to rest. However, he could not reveal any flaws. He looked at Prince Lien calmly and sneered, "No, you are wrong. Not only did I injure you, but I will also kill you today. Everyone else is dead, and now it's time to send you on your way." As he spoke, Ji Tianqing slowly raised the Sword of Burial of Heaven, and began to accumulate his divine might. Prince Lien squinted his eyes and roared fiercely, "You, very well. I will remember you forever. From this moment on, I will not rest until you die." After leaving behind these vicious words, Prince Lien turned around without hesitation and rushed to the edge of the heaven-destroying sword formation. Open. In the process, Prince Lien held the 7-star Silver Moon Divine Spear with both hands, and used a forbidden secret skill to unleash his strongest attack. Kaboom! He used all his strength to pierce a hole in the heaven-destroying sword formation, and sword-light shards flew everywhere. Swoosh! Seizing the opportunity before the gap closed, he dashed out in a flash and escaped the heaven-destroying sword formation. Then, he fled without looking back. His figure flashed a few times and disappeared into the horizon. Phew! Seeing that Prince Lien had finally escaped, Ji Tianqing heaved a sigh of relief. He landed on the ruins from the sky, holding the Sword of Burial of Heaven with both hands. He half knelt on the ground, panting heavily. The power of the world is strong, but I need to be strong enough to withstand it. He muttered to himself, and blood kept flowing out of his nose and mouth. His breath was getting weaker and weaker. On the surface, it looked like he was covered in wounds, and they were only superficial wounds that were not fatal. However, in reality, he had used the power of the world 3 times today, and he had even used the Sword of Apocalypse. His divine body and divine spark could not withstand the backlash of the power. His meridians and bones were cracked, and his divine spark was also damaged. It was no exaggeration to say that his injuries were worse than Prince Lien's. However, the power of the Sword of Apocalypse was too terrifying, and it had shocked Prince Lien. Prince Lien could not figure out his strength, and that was why he was scared off by his bravado. If Prince Lien was crazy enough, he would have lost his mind and continued to fight with him. That would have been a different outcome. Luckily, the worst outcome did not happen. Ji Tianqing panted silently for a moment, and continued to absorb the power of the heaven-mending orb to suppress his injuries. After a full 10 breaths, he recovered slightly. "Luckily, I am the only one left in the sword formation, and no one saw me," Ji Tianqing muttered, and waved his hand to remove the heaven-destroying sword formation. He took the Sword of Burial of Heaven and flew into the sky. He looked around, and found that the 2nd and 3rd princes had disappeared. They had left long ago. Forget it, let's ignore them for now. I need to find a place to heal. After making up his mind, Ji Tianqing put away the Sword of Burial of Heaven and was about to leave. At this moment, a bloody light came toward him, and Prince Lien's cold laughter suddenly sounded. "Ha ha ha. This king didn't guess wrongly. You were bluffing." Ji Tianqing looked up and saw that Prince Lien had returned. Chapter 3081. Just a moment ago, Prince Lien ran away impatiently. But now, he actually came back. The reason was that when he ran away, Ji Tianqing did not chase after him. This made him suspicious. He suspected that Ji Tianqing was bluffing, but in reality, he was a coward on the inside and strong on the outside. So, he quietly rushed back to the battlefield and hid in the dark to observe the situation. He patiently waited for a moment, and sure enough, he saw Ji Tianqing remove the heaven-punishing sword formation. His face was pale, and his breath was weak as he vomited blood. This allowed him to be very sure that Ji Tianqing was indeed heavily injured. He, boy, you want to fight with this prince? You're still too inexperienced. Prince Lien held the 7-star silver moon divine spear and approached Ji Tianqing step by step, laughing with a face full of ridicule. He was in a very carefree and proud mood. He could see through Ji Tianqing's real situation and successfully counterattack. This proved that he was more shrewd than Ji Tianqing. In his opinion, Ji Tianqing would undoubtedly die this time. Ji Tianqing's heart was also full of shock. He did not expect Prince Lien's thoughts to be so meticulous. It was simply too difficult to deal with. To deal with Prince Lien, one must go all out and be careful and cautious. The slightest flaw would be seized by the other party. However, Ji Tianqing did not panic or fear. As usual, he was calm and indifferent. This prince has to admit that I underestimated you before. But do you think that just because you can see through this lord's background, victory is in your grasp? Ji Tianqing's mouth hooked up into a sneer, and his eyes coldly looked at Prince Lien. Although he suffered from the backlash of the world's power and was indeed seriously injured, and his strength fell greatly. But he still had many life-saving trump cards, and was still Prince Lien's strongest opponent. Not to mention that the Jiutian Tenju Pagoda could always protect Ji Tianqing from Prince Lien's attacks. The 5-elemental world alone had merged with Ji Tianqing's body. They lived and died together, giving him an immortal body. And the 5 elements world was hidden in the heaven-mending pearl, so it was impossible for Prince Lien to break through the heaven-mending pearl. Ji Tianqing was already in an invincible position. However, Prince Lien didn't know about this. He sneered contemptuously, "Little bastard, you're about to die, and you still want to deceive me? Now that you've suffered a backlash and are heavily injured to such an extent, how much of your strength do you have left? How many moves can you block from this king? Since you're so confident, why waste time?" Repeated probing. "Let's fight to the death." Ji Tianqing held the Heaven Burier sword with both hands. He accumulated a vigorous and violent sword will and pointed it at Prince Lien. As he spoke, he secretly absorbed the power of the heaven-mending orb to suppress his injuries and recover his strength as quickly as possible. Prince Lien was not in a hurry to make a move. He continued to sneer, "Brat, I've already seen through your true colors, and you still want to play this trick? Don't worry, if you want to die, then I will definitely satisfy you. But you're already at the end of your rope and you're all alone. No matter what you do, you're just struggling on your deathbed. And the experts under this king's command will be here soon." When the monarch was alive, he issued an order to gather all the monarchs around the capital to attack you. At most, in 15 minutes, a large number of people will arrive. At that time, I will kill you in front of everyone, understand? Ji Tianqing frowned and said with contempt, "Not only are you scheming and unscrupulous, you're also good at maximizing benefits. Even if I kill the 5th prince, you can't control the blood flame divine kingdom through puppets. But you still want to kill me in front of everyone, take the credit for yourself, and win the favor of the people of the blood flame divine kingdom. You still haven't given up and want to seize the blood flame divine kingdom." Ji Tianqing clearly saw through Prince Lien's thoughts and goals. Compared to the monarch and the 3 princes, Prince Lien was the most difficult opponent to deal with. Prince Lien didn't deny it and sneered, "He he he. It's good that you understand my thoughts. Cooperate with me obediently and put on a good show for the people of the Divine Kingdom." Ji Tianqing waved the burial of heaven in his hand and took the initiative to attack Prince Lien. Dream on. His injuries were basically under control, so there was no point in stalling for time. The injuries to his divine body and divine soul would take a long time to recover. Instead of dragging it out until the monarchs attacked and Prince Lien's scheme succeeded, it was better to end the battle as soon as possible. Heavenly Dragon World / Ji Tianqing snorted coldly as he waved the Heaven Burier sword and unleashed 1,000-long sword radiance toward Grand Prince Lien. Even though he was severely injured and only had 60% of his strength left. But the sword radiance was still dazzling and the sword intent was still violent. The golden sword radiance was like the shadow of a divine dragon. It let out an earth-shattering roar and instantly drowned Prince Lien. Swoosh! Prince Lien's body flashed and teleported 300 miles away, dodging the sword radiance by a hair's breadth. Kaboom! Amidst the deafening noise, the dragon's shadow greatsword fiercely slashed the ground, splashing up dust that covered the sky. 100-mile-long gully was created on the ground. It was like an abyss. Before Ji Tianqing could make another move, Prince Lien had already swung the 7-star Silver Moon Divine Spear and launched a counterattack. Sky Roaring Dragon. He and Ji Tianqing went tit for tat. With the intention of competing, he also used a skill related to the Divine Dragon. Roar! A crimson dragon shadow that was more than 20,000 feet long let out an earth-shattering roar as it dove down from the sky towards Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing also teleported 300 miles to the right. Boom! There was an earth-shattering noise as the crimson dragon shadow slammed into the ground. A deep crater with a radius of 50 kilometers was immediately blasted into the ground that was already in ruins. An endless amount of sand and dust flew high into the sky, making the area hazy and blurry. Ji Tianqing swung his sword and used a few more Sword Dao divine powers to attack Prince Lien. However, Prince Lien had made up his mind not to fight him head-on. He kept dodging and retreating. The reason he did this was to buy time and deplete Ji Tianqing's energy. In 15 minutes at most, a large group of divine lords would arrive and Ji Tianqing would not be able to escape. Ji Tianqing of course knew what Prince Lien was thinking. After failing to injure Prince Lien in 5 consecutive attacks, he did not waste any more energy and turned around to fly away. Seeing this, Prince Lien sneered and chased after him with his divine spear. Ha! Kid, you can't hold on anymore. You still want to run away? You're too naive. Ji Tianqing ignored him and teleported with all his might. His body flashed in the sky. Prince Lien chased after him as fast as the aurora. Every time he caught up to Ji Tianqing, he would wave his divine spear and launch an attack, unleashing a powerful killing move. Or he would use some sinister and strange hidden weapons in an attempt to severely injure Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing did not counterattack in case he was stalled by Prince Lien. He just kept increasing his speed to avoid Prince Lien's attacks. At critical moments, if he could not avoid an attack, he would rely on the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes Pagoda to block it. Just like this, the two parties engaged in a chase and soon flew for tens of thousands of miles. Chapter 3082. Half an hour later. Ji Tianqing and Prince Lien had been chasing each other for 60,000 miles. Along the way, they left a trail of destruction. The mountains and the earth were shattered and filled with ravines. Both of them had used up a lot of energy. Their energy was getting weaker and their speed was slowing down. After all, both of them were severely injured and didn't have time to heal. Their injuries were similar and neither of them had much of an advantage. Of course, Ji Tianqing's self-healing ability was stronger and his divine body was stronger. If he could stall for time, he would definitely recover faster than Prince Lien. But he was alone and had no backup. He wasn't like Prince Lien, who had a powerful force and could gather countless divine lords. So, Ji Tianqing couldn't stall for time, let alone fight with Prince Lien. He had to get rid of Prince Lien and leave Royal City as soon as possible. He had to find a place to heal and refine the bloody fire sacred tree, which could also increase his strength. Starlight Slash. 7 stars suppressing the world. The two of them continued the chase and Prince Lien kept attacking Ji Tianqing with his divine powers. Boom, boom, boom. The sky was filled with divine powers and they landed on the mountains with deafening sounds. Prince Lien was about to catch up with Ji Tianqing again. He took out a few concealed weapons and waved his hand, shooting out 5 silver sharp shuttles towards Ji Tianqing. At the same time, he waved the 7-star silver moon divine spear and shot out hundreds of silver moonlight blades, which surrounded Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing's divine soul was locked and he couldn't dodge. He could only block and fight back. He swung the sword of burial of heaven and created a golden sword aura to destroy the silver moonlight blades. But he couldn't fight back against the 5 silver spikes. He could only try to block them. At this critical moment, a furious dragon roar suddenly resounded in the sky. Roar! Following the deafening dragon roar, a blood-red figure that was 10,000 feet tall suddenly descended from the sky. Swish! After a flash of crimson light, the tall and strong figure appeared in front of Ji Tianqing. 5 silver spikes attacked, but they were blocked by the bloody light in the sky. Pang pang pang. Following a series of muffled explosions, the dazzling blood-red light wall was shattered and exploded into countless fragments. That tall and fit figure was also knocked back 1,000 feet, her body trembling continuously. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing acted in time and used his golden palm to support her back, stopping her. That was right. This 10,000 feet tall figure that was covered in bloody light was none other than Zhenhong. In order to unleash all of her strength and rush over to rescue Ji Tianqing at the fastest speed possible, she did not hesitate to enter a berserk state. "Young master, how are your injuries?" She looked at Ji Tianqing anxiously and asked in a worried tone. "I'm fine." Ji Tianqing shook his head and frowned. "What are you doing here?" Zhenhong replied without hesitation, "I'll save you." "No, I'll help you." Ji Tianqing frowned again and said in a low voice, "You know that I'm already an enemy of the Blood Flame Divine Kingdom, yet you still dare to help me? Do you want to become a public enemy of the Blood Flame Divine Kingdom like me?" Zhenhong nodded firmly and said, "I've already made up my mind. Young master, you've given me a new life. Even if I have to become the enemy of the entire Divine Kingdom, I must repay you." "You? Why are you doing this?" Ji Tianqing's mood was quite complicated. He was very surprised by Zhenhong's decision. At this time, Grand Prince Lien rushed over with a hideous smile. He. What a pair of lovers. It's a pity that you two are about to go to the Yellow Springs together. Grand Prince Lien laughed as he waved his divine spear, shooting out starlight that covered a radius of 100 miles. Ji Tianqing swung the burial of heaven without hesitation, shooting out thousands of 5-colored sword lights. Pang pang pang. A series of muffled explosions echoed between heaven and earth. The 5-colored sword lights and the starlight blades were all shattered. The two were evenly matched, neither of them gaining the upper hand. Zhenhong didn't make a move, but he had already made up his mind to help Ji Tianqing escape this place. So, when the sword lights and starlight shattered, she grabbed Ji Tianqing without hesitation, turned around and fled as fast as the aurora. Whoosh! Her whole body was burning with bloody flames as she burst out with all her potential and shot out like a cannonball. In just an instant, she flew more than 200 miles away. Her tall and slender legs stomped on the ground, and she bounced more than 200 miles away again. She turned into a stream of bloody flames and sped through the mountains at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, she took Ji Tianqing and fled more than 1,000 miles away. At this time, she flew into the sky and used the law of space to teleport. Whoosh! 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 The bloody light flickered in the sky. Her speed became faster and faster, leaving Grand Prince Lien further and further behind. Seeing this scene, Grand Prince Lien was so angry that his face turned green. His eyes were gloomy as he muttered, "Damn bitch. Her strength and speed are so terrifying." Although Zhenhong only had the strength of a 4th-level divine monarch, she didn't hesitate to consume her lifespan and burst out with extreme speed, which was comparable to a 7th-level divine monarch. And Grand Prince Lien was the same as Ji Tianqing. He had suffered extremely serious injuries. His current flying speed was not much faster than a 7th-level divine monarch's. This situation was rather awkward. Grand Prince Lien was a 9th-level divine monarch and his strength was many times stronger than Zhenhong's. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't catch up to Zhenhong. Instead, he was left further and further behind. Grand Prince Lien was already confident of victory. He chased after Ji Tianqing like a cat playing with a mouse. But now, Zhenhong suddenly appeared and ruined his plan. He had gone overboard again. How could he not be angry? But he was unwilling to give up. He could only endure his injuries and chase after Zhenhong at the fastest speed. Swoosh! Swoosh! Zhenhong and Grand Prince Lien, one in front and one behind, teleported in the sky. Soon, 15 minutes passed. The two had chased for 100,000 miles, but they were still 100 miles away. Finally, there was a turn for the better. In the sky ahead of them, a dazzling blood-red light appeared and rushed over as fast as lightning. Grand Prince Lien focused his eyes and found that there were 6 figures wrapped in the blood-red light. They were 6 old men with different appearances. They all wore the same black robes and their chests and lapels were embroidered with the royal insignia. Without a doubt, they were the royal experts guarding the royal palace. They were the most loyal guards to the king of Blood Flame country. Usually, they were responsible for the safety of the royal palace and the king. When the king had a secret order to deal with some important matters, they were the butcher's knife in the king's hand. Most importantly, those 6 imperial experts were all 7th-stage realm upper-level god monarchs. When he recognized the 6 people, Grand Prince Lien revealed a smug sneer. He, the heavens are on my side. Although he didn't care about the royal experts at all. But now, the 6 royal experts were able to turn the situation around. Chapter 3083. Previously, the king and the 2 princes had led dozens of imperial guards and a few thousand imperial guards to hunt down Ji Tianqing. However, after leaving the royal city, the imperial guards were left far behind. By the time the imperial guards arrived at the battlefield, the battle had already ended. The king had fallen, the 2 princes had escaped, and all of Prince Lien's subordinates were dead. No one knew what had happened, so they could only spread out and search for the whereabouts of the king and Ji Tianqing. More than 60 imperial guards were divided into 10 teams. More than 3,000 imperial guards were also divided into 30 teams. And these 6 experts were obviously the luckiest ones. When they arrived nearby, they saw 2 balls of divine light chasing each other in the sky, so they rushed over to check the situation. When they were 100 miles away, they recognized Zhenhong who was running in front and Prince Lien who was chasing after him. Of course, there was also Ji Tianqing who was sitting on Zhenhong's shoulder, covered in blood. Without needing any explanation, the 6 imperial palace experts charged at Zhenhong without any regard for their own safety, desperately trying to stop him. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The 6 elders all took out their divine weapons and unleashed dazzling 5-colored divine abilities and secret techniques to surround and attack Zhenhong. Zhenhong's tall figure was suddenly engulfed by the divine light in the sky. She had no choice but to stop running and use all her strength to defend herself. Ji Tianqing also stopped healing himself and quickly counterattacked with his sword. Bang, bang. All kinds of secret techniques and dazzling lights clashed in the sky, creating a deafening sound. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing and Zhen Hong worked together to block the attacks of the 6 imperial guards. Unfortunately, the two of them were surrounded by 6 experts from the imperial palace. In a short time, they could not break out of the encirclement and get rid of the entanglement. Prince Lien took advantage of this opportunity to catch up. He was full of pride, and a mocking smile appeared on his face. He. Tianqing, this is your destiny. How dare you go against the entire blood-flame divine kingdom? This is a mantis trying to stop a chariot, an ant trying to shake a tree. Ji Tianqing ignored him. He frowned and gloomily stared at the crowd. In fact, he was communicating with Zhen Hong via voice transmission to come up with a countermeasure. The 6 imperial palace experts were all armed with sabers and swords. They surrounded Zhen Hong and Ji Tianqing, maintaining a high degree of vigilance. At the same time, the leading purple-haired old man said to Grand Prince Lien, "We pay our respects to Grand Prince Lien. We are currently in the process of killing the traitors, so it is inconvenient for us to salute your highness. Please forgive us. Dare I ask your highness, where are his majesty and the 2 princes? How are they doing?" These experts only obeyed the king's orders. They only treated Prince Lien with respect and courtesy. At the mention of the monarch, Prince Lien immediately showed a sorrowful expression. He pointed at Ji Tianqing and cursed with righteous indignation, "It's this traitor, this goddamn bastard. He is so cruel and vicious that he actually killed the monarch in front of everyone." Upon hearing this news, the 6 experts froze and their expressions changed drastically. What? The monarch was actually killed? How is this possible? No matter how strong the traitor is, he can't possibly be a match for his majesty. The monarch is the ruler of the people. How could he? This is simply a heinous crime that angers both man and God. The 6 experts exclaimed in shock. They were extremely agitated and furious. Naturally, they believed that Grand Prince Lien would not speak nonsense. Their hatred and killing intent towards Ji Tianqing had also reached its peak. 6 pairs of eyes were bloodshot from the murderous aura. Kill him. Avenge his majesty. This traitor must be killed to appease the people. Betraying the theocracy and killing the monarch is a heinous crime. How can he be forgiven? We will kill this traitor even if we have to exhaust all the power of the theocracy. There was no need for Grand Prince Lien to instigate. The 6 experts could no longer hold back their murderous aura and attacked recklessly. Xianming Divine Blade. Blood Spirit Seal. Emperor Destroyer Sword. Foresees God Sealing Blade. The 6 of them used all their strength to unleash their killer moves. They released a sky full of divine powers and charged towards Zhen Hong and Ji Tianqing. In an instant, the area within 100 miles was flooded by the divine powers. The area was in complete chaos. The mountains and the earth were crushed into ruins. Ji Tianqing and Zhen Hong could only try their best to resist and try to fight back. The 2 of them also unleashed a sky full of sword aura, divine dragon shadow and blood fire. Kaboom! All kinds of divine powers and secret arts clashed, creating a deafening sound that reverberated between heaven and earth. Another apocalyptic battle broke out high in the sky. Grand Prince Lien stood 200 miles away in the sky and watched all this with a mocking expression. He was not in a hurry to make a move. He just watched the 6 experts fight Ji Tianqing and Zhen Hong. He knew very well that Ji Tianqing and Zhen Hong could still hold on for a while. He wanted the 6 experts to exhaust Ji Tianqing and Zhen Hong's strength first. Then, he would make a move and kill Zhen Hong and Ji Tianqing in one fell swoop to reap the fruits of victory. This was the fisherman who benefited when the sandpiper and the clam fought. He wanted to get the biggest reward at the smallest cost. Soon, 100 seconds passed. Ji Tianqing and Zhen Hong fought back with all their might, but they could only fight to a draw. The 6 experts attacked crazily for a long time, but they still couldn't kill the other party. They became angrier and angrier, so they used their forbidden secret arts. At the cost of their lifespan and divine blood, they unleashed their most powerful combat power. Boom, boom, boom. Dozens of divine powers and secret arts that were doubled in power poured down like a flood, drowning Ji Tianqing and Zhen Hong. The pressure on the two of them doubled, and the situation became extremely dangerous. Zhen Hong was already covered in wounds. Blood kept gushing out of the wounds all over his body. Ji Tianqing's strength was getting weaker, and his injuries were getting worse. Under such circumstances, Zhen Hong looked determined. He pursed his lips and fought back without saying a word. She had already made up her mind. Even if she died here with Ji Tianqing, she would never back down or regret. But Ji Tianqing frowned and thought for a while. He had no choice but to make a decision. Swish! He took out the Jiutian 10 Absolutes Tower and planned to take Zhen Hong into the Divine Tower to hide temporarily. With the invincible defense of the Divine Tower, no one could do anything to them. When the time came, they could heal their injuries in the distorted space. When their injuries were healed and their strength recovered to the peak, they could kill Prince Lien and the experts. However, they couldn't leave the Divine Tower. By then, countless divine emperors and imperial guards would arrive and they would be surrounded. It would be impossible for them to escape. Ji Tianqing and Zhen Hong were about to enter the Divine Tower. Right at this moment, a blood-red saber light that was thousands of feet long suddenly appeared in the sky. It was so powerful that it could split the sky and earth apart. Swish! The sharp and narrow blood-red saber light had a rather strange appearance, and it was filled with extremely violent killing intent. The blade aura cut across the sky silently and appeared on the battlefield like a ghost, slashing 2 experts. Bang, bang. Following 2 muffled explosions, the bodies of the 2 Imperial Palace experts were decapitated. 2 heads flew into the sky, and hot blood spurted out from their necks. Once the evil blade was used, there would be a bloodbath. Chapter 3084. Both Ji Tianqing and Grand Prince Lien had noticed the 1,000 feet blood saber when it appeared. When the two of them saw Blood Blade's appearance, they had different reactions. Prince Lien immediately frowned. A haze covered his eyes as a bad premonition welled up in his heart. He wanted to stop it but it was too late. As he expected, the blood blade easily chopped off the heads of the 2 royal experts. Although it was not fatal, it had destroyed the bodies of the 2 royal experts, making them unable to continue fighting. On the other hand, Ji Tianqing's brows relaxed as a hint of astonishment appeared in his eyes. It's her. Why is she here? Of course he could recognize the blade light. It was from Demon Blade Lin Shui. But he was surprised. Why did Lin Shui come to Royal City? Moreover, he had even rushed to help him at this crucial moment. Was it a coincidence? It shouldn't be, right? At the same time, the destruction of the 2 royal experts' bodies also shocked the other 4. They were all shocked and retreated in fear. They looked at the blood blade light vigilantly. Swoosh! The 3,000-meter-long blood saber dissipated, revealing a graceful figure. It was a beautiful woman with a seductive temperament. She was wearing a dark purple dress and her bare feet were bare as she stood proudly in the sky. His white hair, which reached his waist, fluttered in the wind. She was holding a blood blade that was 3 feet long and shaped like a crescent moon. What a seductive woman! She was the Blood Blade Sex Master, Lin Shui, who had the titles of White-Haired Demon Blade and Blood Blade Demon Girl. Although she was only a senior divine monarch. His strength and realm were on par with the experts of the imperial palace, but he was not much stronger than them. Although they were both in the 7th degree realm, their foundation and talent were very different. Lin Shui was the world-famous blood blade sect's master. Countless immortals trembled in fear. As for the royal experts, they were not famous. Moreover, Lin Shui had reached the 7th degree realm 1,000 years ago. Now she was at the limit of the 7th degree realm. No. Ji Tianqing suddenly realized that Lin Shui had broken through. She was now an 8th degree divine monarch. Moreover, the blood blade in her hand was a top-grade monarch-grade artifact. It was easy to kill the two royal experts. There was dead silence between heaven and earth. The air seemed to have solidified, and the atmosphere was incomparably heavy. Prince Lian and the 4 inner palace masters all stared at Shui Lin with gloomy eyes, not daring to act rashly. But Shui Lin ignored them. She held the demon sword that was 3 times longer than her in her right hand. She stepped on the sky barefoot and flew to Zhenhong. She sized up Zhenhong a few times before looking over Zhenhong's shoulder. Her gaze then fell on Ji Tianqing. The corners of his mouth curled up into a mocking smile as he said in a light tone, "Brat, are you fated to fall in love? Why is it that wherever you go, you attract bees and butterflies, and you never lack beauties by your side?" Shui Lin's eyes and tone were a bit weird, and there was a hint of jealousy in her teasing. Not to mention Ji Tianqing, even the simple-minded girl Zhenhong felt a little uncomfortable. Ahem. Ji Tianqing pretended to cough twice to hide his awkwardness. He cupped his hands and bowed, "Sect leader Lin, how have you been?" Shui Lin waved her hand and said indifferently, "The Crimson Blade sect has been disbanded, and I'm no longer the sect leader. Call me sister." Not only Ji Tianqing was stunned, but Zhenhong was also stunned and looked at her strangely. As for Prince Lian and the 4 inner palace masters, they felt that it was ridiculous. What was this? We were fighting a bloody battle, and we were fighting to the death. You two are flirting in public? That's not appropriate, is it? Ji Tianqing did not know whether to laugh or cry. He shook his head and said, "Although I'm very grateful for your help at the critical moment, I can't comply with your request. Also, do you know what happened in King City? Have you thought about the consequences of saving me so rashly?" Shui Lin grabbed a lock of white hair with her left hand and played with it between her fingers. She said indifferently, "How can I not know? I'm the one who understands you the best. Before you entered King City, I already guessed that you were going to cause trouble. However, I really didn't expect you to be so daring as to dig up someone's sacred tree. I've never met someone as arrogant as you in my life. So, of course, I couldn't just sit by and watch you get surrounded, so I came to save you as fast as I could." Although Shui Lin said it casually, Ji Tianqing and Zhenhong could guess. She must have had a premonition, and she was very worried. Ji Tianqing took a deep look at her, then cupped his hands and bowed with sincerity. "Shui Lin, I can't thank you enough. I'll remember this favor. What do you want?" Shui Lin frowned and said angrily, "You want me to cover for you while you run away with this beauty and live in seclusion to have children?" Ji Tianqing almost vomited blood. Zhenhong also blushed and could not help but remind her, "Sect leader Shui Lin, you've misunderstood. My name is Zhenhong, and I'm young master's maid." Shui Lin waved her hand disapprovingly and glared at Ji Tianqing. She said fiercely, "Kid, the reason I disbanded the Blood Blade sect was to find you. I have nothing to do now, and seeing that you're so daring, I'll follow you to the ends of the world. You owe me a lot, so don't even think about getting rid of me." Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said with a playful smile, "I'm now the public enemy of the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom. Are you sure you want to follow me? When the time comes, there won't be any wandering or romantic nights. There will only be endless hunting and running around. Have you thought it through?" Shui Lin nodded without hesitation, "Isn't this more interesting?" I'm not from the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom, and I've never thought of staying here. The two of them reminisced in front of everyone as if there was no end to it. Grand Prince Lien finally couldn't take it anymore. His face was as black as the bottom of a pot, and his eyes flashed coldly. Are you done? He shouted angrily. Do you think I don't exist? Why are you talking so much? Xue Lin turned to look at him and sized him up. She sneered and said, I know you. You're that useless prince from the great Yan Empire. Your brother failed to seize the throne, and he and your mother were killed by the emperor. You, on the other hand, survived and were sent here by the emperor. Before Xue Lin could finish, Grand Prince Lien's eyes widened, and his entire body was filled with rage and killing intent. You bitch, you're asking for it. That incident was his reverse scale, and it was the deepest pain and humiliation in his heart. He would never allow anyone to mention it. Xue Lin was fearless and didn't take Grand Prince Lien seriously at all. She raised her right hand and pointed the demon knife at Grand Prince Lien. She sneered. Although you're very strong, I'm not your match. However, with your current appearance, it's not difficult for me to kill you. Grand Prince Lien was so angry that his face turned green. He sneered and said, What an ignorant shrew. Do you really think that you can stop me and save Tianqing on your own? Chapter 3085. Prince Lien was so confident. It wasn't because he had recovered from his injuries that he was confident of defeating Lin Xue. It was because the 4 Imperial Palace Masters had sent out a message to gather all the Imperial Palace Masters and Imperial Guards. Prince Lien's divine sense detected that a dozen teams were rushing over within a radius of 20,000 miles. There were more than 20 Imperial Palace Masters and more than 800 Imperial Guards in the dozen teams. In 100 breaths, these masters would complete the encirclement. By then, Ji Tianqing, Lin Xue, and the others would not be able to escape. Lin Xue and Ji Tianqing also sensed that something was wrong and released their divine sense to check the situation. Immediately, the two of them also sensed that the dozen teams were approaching. The situation was very dangerous. Lin Xue didn't waste any more time. She shouted to the empty sky, break through the encirclement and cover Tianqing to leave this place. As her voice trailed off, 3 figures suddenly appeared behind the 4 Imperial Palace Masters. One of the figures was a ball of crimson light without a body. It was the Vice Sect Master, Blood Illusion God. The other 2 were no strangers to Ji Tianqing. They were the left emissary Jin and the right emissary of the Blood Dragon. The 3 of them had been hiding for a long time. They suddenly appeared and launched a surprise attack on the 4 Imperial Palace Masters. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A few divine powers and secret arts were unleashed instantly. Bright crimson light filled the sky. The attention of the 4 Imperial Palace Masters was focused on Lin Xue and Ji Tianqing. Caught off guard, the 4 of them were hit by the divine powers and secret arts. They screamed in agony. Bang, bang, bang. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. The 4 of them were severely injured and flew backward. Blood rained down from the sky. Lin Xue also held the demon blade and attacked Prince Lien with all her might. Sky Edge Slash. She waved the crimson blade and a crimson light covered the sky. It turned into a 1,000-foot crimson blade and slashed at Prince Lien. Prince Lien's divine soul was locked and the space within 100 miles was sealed. There was no way for him to escape. He could only wave his divine spear and use all his strength to block the attack. Bang! A deafening muffled explosion resounded through the sky. The 1,000-foot fiery dragon spear shadow was smashed into pieces by the crimson blade. Even the prince was sent flying backward, rolling and smashing into a mountain peak 100 miles away. The 1,000-meter-tall mountain was smashed into pieces, sending earth and rocks flying all over the sky. PFFF, after struggling for a while, he shook off countless rocks and soil and flew out of the ruins. However, as his injuries worsened, he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood, and his footsteps staggered. Damned lowly servant! Prince Lien was so angry that he was about to go crazy. He cursed in a cold tone. He channeled his power to suppress his injuries and regained his composure. Holding the spear, he flew into the sky and attacked Xue Lin. The surrounding teams were getting closer and closer. He only needed to hold on for a few more breaths before Ji Tianqing, Xue Lin, and the others would be surrounded. At that time, not only would he kill Ji Tianqing, but he would also kill Zhenhong and Lin Xue. Of course, Xue Lin knew this. Therefore, after sending Grand Prince Lien flying, she did not follow up with another attack. He was not greedy for merit, nor did he have any extravagant hopes of killing Prince Lien. She did not forget her purpose, which was to save Ji Tianqing. Therefore, she covered Zhenhong and Ji Tianqing and fled to the south. Swoosh! Without hesitation, Zhenhong burst out with his fastest speed, like lightning streaking across the sky. Xue Lin, Blood Illusion God, Gold Left Emissary, and Blood Dragon Right Emissary were all guarding Ji Tianqing. Everyone worked together and pressed forward with indomitable will. Prince Lien was unwilling to give up. He waved his spear and chased after them. However, as soon as he got close, Xue Lin intercepted him and sent him flying back with a slash. He was very tenacious. Enduring his injuries, he attacked again, vowing to stall Ji Tianqing, Xue Lin, and the others. However, Xue Lin, Gold Illusion God, and Gold Left Emissary joined forces and attacked him head-on. This time, Prince Lien's ending was even more miserable. Not only was he sent flying hundreds of miles away, but he was also severely injured and spat out blood. His entire body was a bloody mess. His strength was further weakened, and he could no longer compete with Xue Lin. If he continued to fight, his body would very likely be destroyed by Xue Lin's demonic blade. At that time, the loss would be too great. Prince Lien could only suppress his anger and unwillingness as he watched Ji Tianqing, Xue Lin, and the others escape. Bastard! You're lucky this time. I'll kill you sooner or later. Grand Prince Lien stood in the sky and roared with an ashen face as he watched the group leave at lightning speed. Soon, Ji Tianqing and the others had escaped 5,000 miles away. They encountered two teams of palace masters who were crazily charging at them. Ji Tianqing quickly attacked. He waved the Burial of Heaven sword and slashed out an overwhelming sword light. Zhenhong, Xue Lin, Blood Illusion God, and the others also used their unique divine powers to counterattack. The battle was about to start. The divine powers and secret arts released by the two sides collided violently in the sky. Bang, bang, bang. Boom, boom, boom. Earth-shattering explosions and deafening noises reverberated endlessly between heaven and earth. Although there was a lot of noise, the battle only lasted for 3 breaths before it was over. Ji Tianqing, Xue Lin, and the others were much stronger than the two teams of palace masters. The two sides only exchanged one blow and the divine powers of the palace masters were defeated. By the time Ji Tianqing and the others launched their second attack, the Imperial Palace experts were already injured and were forced to retreat with blood dripping from their wounds. When they used the third blow, the two teams of palace masters were severely injured and most of their divine bodies were destroyed. They spilled blood all over the sky, leaving behind a large pile of broken limbs as they fled in a sorry state. Ji Tianqing, Zhenhong, and the others continued to fly south. After a while, 3 more teams of palace guards surrounded Ji Tianqing and the others. The strength of these imperial guards was even worse. However, they had the advantage in numbers. There were more than 300 of them and they looked powerful. However, after the two sides engaged in close combat, the imperial guards were defeated in just one exchange. Xue Lin was the most valiant. She took the lead with the demon sword and charged forward bravely. She was like a ball of dark red bloodlight, sweeping up a destructive hurricane of death in the sky. Once the palace guards came into contact with the hurricane, they were shredded into pieces by the blood-red sword light. Even their divine personas were on the verge of collapse. The group charged forward and tore the 3 teams of palace guards into pieces. They charged out of the encirclement fiercely. They were invincible and unstoppable. Not long after, the group flew for more than 10,000 miles and there were no more obstacles in front of them. The 20 teams of palace masters and palace guards finally arrived at the battlefield and gathered together. However, they could not complete the encirclement. They could only watch as Ji Tianqing and the others broke through the encirclement and left. In anger and unwillingness, the palace masters and palace guards chased after them with all their might. However, their flying speed was much slower than Ji Tianqing and the others. They could not be mentioned in the same breath. After chasing for more than 20,000 miles, they were more than 10,000 miles away and lost track of Ji Tianqing and the others. No matter how helpless they were, they could only stop chasing and look at the horizon and sigh. Under such circumstances, they could only report to the palace and ask for instructions on the next step of the plan and action. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 3086. One day later. Ji Tianqing, Lin Shui and the rest left King City. In the beginning, there were many Sir God experts from King City who chased after them with a large group of experts. As time went by, those people were shaken off. Now, the experts from Royal City had long lost track of their whereabouts and news. Even if they were still searching for the whereabouts of the crowd in the vicinity of the capital, it would be of no use. Ji Tianqing, Lin Shui and the rest had checked and there was no danger within 30,000 miles. Only then did everyone heave a sigh of relief and relax. The night was cold and the starry sky was dark. At the border of King City in Linfeng County, in a lofty mountain range. Ji Tianqing, Lin Shui, Zhen Hong and the rest stood on the peak of a mountain, facing the cold night wind and discussing something important. The 3-foot-long blood-red devil saber had shrunk 100 times. It had become a 3-inch-long delicate knife and Lin Shui was playing with it between her fingers. She stared at Ji Tianqing and asked solemnly, "Boy, what are you going to do next? We are in the same boat and are the public enemies of Bloody Flame Holy Kingdom. In this divine kingdom, there is no place for us to stay. From tonight onwards, are we going to run away?" Ji Tianqing looked at her and said with a playful smile, "What's wrong? Do you regret it now that your impulsiveness has worn off?" Lin Shui stared at him and said with a scornful smile, "Are you looking down on me? Do I look like an impulsive and reckless person? This is a decision I made after careful consideration. I am 100% sincere to you but you dare to doubt me. It's good that you don't regret it." Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded. He looked at Sir God Blood Illusion, Left Emissary Jean and Blood Dragon Right Emissary and asked, "What about you? Do you regret it?" Sir God Blood Illusion and Blood Dragon Right Emissary shook their heads and said with a smile, "Of course not. We will follow you wherever you go." Left Emissary Jean hurriedly shook his head and said firmly, "It is our dream and honor to be able to follow a genius expert like young Master Tian Heng and do great things." Ji Tianqing's smile deepened. He glanced at Shui Lin and asked the 3, "Did you guys do this willingly or were you forced by her?" "Humph." Lin Shui snorted and stared at him again. Sir God Blood Illusion, Blood Dragon and Left Emissary Jean quickly waved their hands and explained in unison, "You are joking." "Of course, we are willing." Ji Tianqing nodded and said seriously, "Good. I don't care if you are sincere or not, I will take it seriously. I hope you will remember what you said tonight. Don't regret or complain in the future. From now on, we are on the same side of the same family. And I will tell you the plan's plan. Of the 4 peoples as Left Emissary and Emissary, Left Emissary Jean and Left Emissary Jean smiled. Everyone looked at Ji Tianqing expectantly and listened to his plan. Ji Tianqing said solemnly, "It will be difficult for us to stay in the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom any longer. However, we are not in a hurry to leave. My injuries are quite serious, so I need to find a place to hide and recuperate for a while. After I recover to my peak condition, I still have a few things to deal with before I can bring all of you out of the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom. As for the future, I may go to the Great Yan Empire to do something more important." Hearing this, Xue Lin frowned. Her clear eyes were filled with confusion. "Hey, are you crazy? You already have a death feud with Prince Lien. How dare you go to the Great Yan Empire? Aren't you walking into a trap? If I were you, I would leave the Great Yan Empire as soon as possible after recuperating." Ji Tianqing waved his hand and explained, "There are more than 10 kingdoms under the Great Yan Empire. Their territory is too big, so I can't leave in a short time. Moreover, the Great Yan Empire is more powerful, and they might have something I want. Even if I offended Prince Lien, he is a sinner of the Great Yan Empire. The Emperor has the final say in the Great Yan Empire. Even the prince can't do anything to me." Zhen Hong nodded and said firmly, "I'll follow young master's orders and decisions. I just want to stay by young master's side and fulfill my duty as a maid." Lin Xue glanced at her and waved her hand disapprovingly. She said to Ji Tianqing, "All right, I know you will be stubborn. I won't persuade you anymore. Anyway, I only have friends. I don't have any relatives or family. It's the same wherever I go. You make the decision. We'll go wherever you say." Since Lin Xue had made the decision, Xue Huan, Xue Long, and Envoy Jin would follow without any objections. Ji Tianqing smiled and said, "It's decided. We will go to Linfeng County now and sneak into Slanted Wind City secretly." Lin Xue looked puzzled again and asked, "Slanted Wind City? That place is not far from here. There will be a lot of powerful people searching for that place. Why are you going there? Could it be that you've prepared a backup plan and arranged for people to pick us up in Slanted Wind City?" Ji Tianqing thought for a while and said with a smile, "I guess so." "What do you mean by, I guess so? Are you sure?" Lin Xue mumbled as she took out the pitch-black godly ship. This godly ship with a ferocious appearance and gloomy aura was Lin Xue's ship. This was a monarch-level upper-grade godly ship. When it was at full speed, it was as fast as Ji Tianqing's flying speed. Everyone boarded the godly ship. Under the control of Envoy Jin and Right Envoy Xue Long, it flew across the night sky at lightning speed. Swoosh! The godly ship turned into a streak of black light and sped across the night sky, heading straight for Slanted Wind City. Inside the godly ship, Ji Tianqing, Zhen Hong, Lin Xue, and Xue Huan sat in the spacious hull. Seeing that Ji Tianqing had no intention of going into seclusion, Lin Xue could not help but ask, "It will take at least 3 days to get to Slanted Wind City from here. Your injuries are so serious. What are you doing here instead of going to the secret room to heal?" Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said slowly, "Even if I have to go into seclusion to heal, I'm not in a hurry. Let's talk about you first. What have you been doing all this time? How did you find me?" Seeing that his injuries were stable and did not worsen, Lin Xue did not rush him to heal. Since Ji Tianqing wanted to chat with her, she said, "After we separated, I went back to the Blood Blade sect to arrange the disbanding of the sect. After a few days, the situation was settled. Xue Huan and I left the sect first and came to Monarch City to find you. We left all the trivial matters to Xue Long and Envoy Jin. Originally, I should have arrived at Monarch City 7 days ago. But on the way, I could not help but take Lin Shan's godhead. After taking my revenge, there was no point in keeping his godhead, so I refined it." Chapter 3087. Only after breaking through to the 8th level Divine Lord realm did Lin Xue set off for the capital. When she arrived at the capital, the divine blood ceremony had already ended. Ji Tianqing had already made a name for himself in the arena competition and won the crown. At that time, he, Zhenhong, and the rest entered the blood flame mystic realm and were receiving the baptism of the sacred tree. When Lin Shui learned of this news, she also felt gratified and proud of Ji Tianqing. But she kept feeling that things might not go so smoothly. After Ji Tianqing entered the blood flame mystic realm, he would most likely cause some big trouble. It just so happened that Left Emissary Jean and Blood Dragon Right Emissary also finished handling matters and rushed to the capital to meet up with her. She sent the two emissaries to inquire about the news and understand Ji Tianqing's actions in the capital. In a short 2 days, she inquired about the previous matters clearly. And at this time, Ji Tianqing had already seized the sacred tree and destroyed the blood flame mystic realm. He fled the capital and was pursued by the monarch, 2 princes, and a large number of imperial guards. When Lin Shui received the news and chased out of the capital, she was already 15 minutes late. Therefore, she did not catch up to Ji Tianqing all along. Only at the critical moment when Prince Lien was chasing Ji Tianqing did she arrive in time. Understanding the whole story, Ji Tianqing was somewhat touched in his heart and had an even better impression of Lin Shui. He gradually felt that Lin Shui only looked valiant on the surface and was even a little carefree. But in reality, she was not a true bloodthirsty demoness. It was just that in the past, her temper was even more irritable because of the blood feud. Now that the great grudge was avenged and the knot in her heart was also untied, her true nature could be seen. A little straightforward and shrewish, but kind-hearted. Shui Lin saw that Ji Tianqing was silent and deep in thought. She couldn't help but tease, "What's wrong? Are you touched by this old lady's deep friendship? Don't misunderstand, this old lady has no interest in a pretty boy like you. This old lady is only doing this to repay the favor. After all, you helped this old lady take revenge." After saying that, she reached out to pat Zhenhong on the shoulder and give her a few words of advice. Unfortunately, the height difference was a little too big. She withdrew her hand without leaving a trace and said to Zhenhong, "Little beauty, I'm your senior. I'm a good friend of young Master Tianqing. We're friends. So, don't think that I'm here to steal your man." Zhenhong's expression was very awkward. His cheeks were red as he lowered his head, not knowing whether he should answer or not. Ji Tianqing was also quite embarrassed and had a headache. He thought to himself, this demoness really has no filter on her mouth and no taboos. How can she be so indecent? Sir God Blood Illusion, who was by the side, was at a loss due to the awkward atmosphere. Seeing that Shui Lin didn't notice and didn't intend to restrain himself, he quickly coughed twice and interrupted Lin Shui's words. Ji Tianqing took the opportunity to change the topic. He stared at Sir God Blood Illusion and asked with concern, "Deputy Sect Master, I have always wanted to ask you, how did you get injured back then? Why haven't you reforged your divine body? Is it because you've cultivated some kind of technique, or you haven't found a suitable opportunity?" Sir God Blood Illusion also wanted to resolve the awkwardness. He quickly answered, "Young Master Tianqing, the Blood Blade sect no longer exists. Please don't call me Deputy Sect Master. Just call me Blood Illusion. As for my divine body, it's a long story." He told Ji Tianqing everything that had happened, from beginning to end. It was actually very simple. Back then, he got to know Shui Lin, who had just arrived at the Blood Flame Divine Kingdom. He already had a grudge with the Blood Sword sect, and Shui Lin hated the Blood Sword sect to the bone. The two of them were like-minded and decided to join forces to deal with the Blood Sword sect. In a battle, the two of them were besieged by the experts of the Blood Sword sect. In order to save Shui Lin, Blood Illusion blocked a fatal blow from Lin Shan. From then on, his body was destroyed. Moreover, Lin Shan used the blood sword to destroy his divine body and poisoned and cursed his godhead. This caused him to be unable to reforge his divine body. For nearly 1,000 years, he could only cultivate a special ability to maintain his illusory state. Ji Tianqing understood the situation and pondered for a moment with a frown. Suddenly, he had an idea. Blood illusion, do you want to reforge your divine body and return to normal? Sir God Blood Illusion was stunned for a moment before he laughed bitterly. Young master, you must be joking. For the past few hundred years, I've been dreaming of reforging my divine body, however, it's as difficult as ascending to the heavens. I've tried countless methods, but they all ended in failure. After a long time, I've become disheartened and no longer have any hope. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said with a smile, actually, this isn't rare. It's just that most people don't use the right method, so they can't recover. Sir God Blood Illusion was stunned for a moment before he asked in an excited tone, young master, you mean, you have a way? Ji Tianqing nodded. Of course. His tone was firm and confident. Sir God Blood Illusion became even more excited. His spirit that had been dormant for many years was suddenly roused. Even though he was just a ball of blood light without a body, his expression couldn't be seen. The ball of blood light surged faster and the light became even more dazzling. He wasn't the only one. Lin Shui revealed a shocked expression as she looked at Ji Tianqing in disbelief. Hey! This is a serious matter. You can't joke about it. Ji Tianqing turned his head and stared at her. He said angrily, do I look like someone who jokes? Lin Shui thought seriously for a moment before she nodded. Ji Tianqing rolled his eyes and ignored her. Sir God Blood Illusion's voice was trembling as he said with anticipation, young master, please enlighten me. How can I recover my divine body? Ji Tianqing said in a serious tone, I know a secret magic called substitution of the plum tree for the peach tree. For a god like you who can't reforge your divine body, you can use a divine item as a medium to reforge your divine body. Of course, the higher the grade of the divine item, the more powerful the divine body that can be reforged. Divine item? Sir God Blood Illusion was silent for a moment before he asked doubtfully, what kind of divine item is needed? A divine weapon? Or a rare treasure? Or some medicinal herb? Ji Tianqing nodded and said, the things that you mentioned can basically be used. However, the grade of the divine item can't be too high or too low. It has to be the most suitable for you. If the grade is too high, you won't be able to perform substitution and you won't be able to control your divine body. If the grade of the divine item is too low, it will be easy to reforge your divine body. However, your future achievements will be limited and your abilities will be greatly reduced. Sir God Blood Illusion nodded and said solemnly, thank you for your guidance, young master. I roughly understand. I need to consider carefully before I ask for your advice. Ji Tianqing smiled and said, I still remember how to cultivate and cast the ability of substituting the plum tree for the peach tree. When you need it, I will teach you. As for the divine item that can reforge your divine body, I have already thought of it. After I recover from my injuries, I can get it for you. Sir God Blood Illusion was even more surprised and asked with anticipation, may I ask what divine item you are talking about? Ji Tianqing said with a playful smile, how about a branch of the Shui Yan sacred tree? Chapter 3088. What? The branch of the bloody flame sacred tree? Sir God Blood Illusion and Lin Shui were stunned by Ji Tianqing's words. Both of them were surprised and in disbelief. Lin Shui wasn't involved and didn't say much. She only looked at Ji Tianqing with a complicated gaze and felt emotional. Sir God Blood Illusion was uneasy and said with a bitter smile, Mister, this is too precious, right? He had stayed in the Bloody Flame Divine Kingdom for 1,000 years and knew that the Bloody Flame Sacred Tree was a divine item that guarded the kingdom. It was very precious and powerful. Although everyone knew that Ji Tianqing had snatched the Bloody Flame Sacred Tree. That was a top divine item that he had exchanged for with his life. Sir God Blood Illusion and him were neither relatives nor friends. They didn't have any connection or friendship. However, Ji Tianqing was willing to use the branch of the sacred tree to help him reconstruct his divine body. He was too generous. Sir God Blood Illusion was overwhelmed by the favor. Ji Tianqing saw through his thoughts and hurriedly waved his hand and persuaded, Shui Illusion, don't be so surprised. I have already snatched the entire bloody flame sacred tree. It's nothing to take a branch. However, this is a great opportunity for you. The bloody flame sacred tree is a quasi-king level divine item. A branch with excellent quality is also a supreme grade divine item. In your current situation, you definitely can't use quasi-king level and king level divine items. Using an ordinary monarch level divine object would greatly reduce one's strength. The branch of the bloody flame sacred tree is the most suitable. There is a high chance of success and it's easier to reconstruct a new body. The only pity is that if you use the branch of the sacred tree to reconstruct your body, your future achievements will be limited. You are destined to never break through to Divine King Realm and can only reach peak Divine Lord Realm at most. Seeing Ji Tianqing's reaction, Lin Shui couldn't help but mutter, look at what you said, why does it sound so awkward? Even if Shui Illusion doesn't reconstruct his body, he can't break through to Divine King Realm in his life. Reaching peak Divine Lord Realm is already the limit. Not to mention him, aren't all of us here the same? Divine King Realm Supreme Experts, how high and mighty were they? That's a peerless expert that's hard to come by in 1,000 years. Can anyone reach that level so casually? Sir God Blood Illusion quickly nodded in agreement and thanked Ji Tianqing. Yes, Sect Master is right. Based on my aptitude and current state, being able to break through to 8th stage realm is already a great fortune. If I'm able to reach 9th stage realm peak, then I would have no regrets in this lifetime. As for the Divine King Realm, I don't even dare to dream about it. It's too illusory. Ji Tianqing was at a loss for words. He didn't know what to say. Only Zhen Hong shook his head and said seriously, Senior Lin Shui is wrong. The few of us really don't have any hope, nor do we dare to dream of becoming deity kings. But young master is different from us. He has the greatest hope of becoming a divine king. When Zhen Hong said this, his clear eyes were filled with certainty and expectation. Shui Lin glanced at her and thought to herself, alas. This young lass has indeed been bewitched by him. Love really makes one lose their rationality. Alright, stop this question. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and interrupted this topic. He looked at Sir God Blood Illusion and said seriously, since you feel that there's no problem, then it's settled. After I go into closed-door cultivation to recuperate, I will retrieve a branch from the sacred tree and help you reconstruct your divine body. Sir God Blood Illusion was filled with gratitude as he congealed a figure from his bloodlight and bowed towards him, expressing his gratitude in a solemn tone. Thank you young master for saving me. Shui Huan will remember this kindness in my heart and will never forget it. From today onwards, as long as young master has any instructions, Shui Huan is willing to go through water and tread on fire without any hesitation. Ji Tianqing smiled as he waved his hand and said, it's just a small matter. You don't have to be so courteous. It's too serious. This matter was settled just like that. Everyone chatted for a while more before they entered their respective secret rooms to meditate and recuperate. Ji Tianqing stayed in the secret room as he drew out the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes Pagoda and placed it on the table. He entered the Divine Pagoda, returned to the distorted spacetime, and started to recuperate. His injuries were too severe. His internal organs, meridians, and divine bones were all damaged. Helpless, he had no choice but to consume large amounts of divine pills and consume large amounts of divine stones and origin stones. He even had to absorb the heaven-mending pearl's power. Fortunately, his self-healing ability was very strong. In addition to these pills and resources, his recovery speed was even faster. At the same time, Yunyao and Ji Ke had long broken through to the Divine Lord realm and were cultivating in the distorted spacetime to consolidate their Divine Tao foundations. After breaking through to the Divine Lord realm, they entered a whole new realm. Their talent and comprehension abilities were stimulated, and they stepped into a higher level. Those divine abilities and supreme skills that could not be cultivated in the past could now be comprehended and cultivated. The two felt that their strength was not strong enough, so they cultivated even more diligently. White Dragon, Xianyu, Black Dragon, and Ji Wushuang were also fully focused on cultivating. Their goal was to break through to the Divine Lord realm as soon as possible. What happened previously allowed them to have a clear understanding of the Divine realm. If one did not reach the Divine Lord realm, they practically did not have the qualifications to travel around the Divine realm. In the next 3 days, Ji Tianqing did not appear. He had been healing in the distorted spacetime. 3 days had passed in the outside world, and 5 months had passed in the distorted spacetime. After 5 months of treatment, his injuries were almost half healed. Although the injuries to his organs and Godhead were still there. The injuries to his meridians and divine body were mostly healed, and there were no major problems. He no longer looked haggard and weak, and he had returned to normal. However, his strength was still a bit weak, only about 70% of his peak state. Of course, as long as he did not meet someone as strong as Prince Lien, he could protect himself. Late that night, the divine ship arrived at Tilted Wind City. When it was a few thousand miles away from Tilted Wind City, the divine ship stopped in a mountain range. Everyone stayed in the divine ship, and Lin Shui flew out alone. She waved her hand and shot out a bloody light, shrinking the divine ship by tens of thousands of times, and put it into her body. Then, she passed through the night and sneaked into Tilted Wind City alone. She did not go through the city gate. Instead, she found a remote city wall and cast a spell to sneak into the city. There were guards patrolling both inside and outside the city wall, and there was even a monarch high-grade defensive array. But to her, these were not much of a problem. Soon, she sneaked into Tilted Wind City. Following Ji Tianqing's instructions, she sneaked into the residential area in the south of the city, and arrived at the door of an ancient house. There was someone guarding the door, and it was a white-haired old man with a crooked back. Lin Shui gave a secret signal. The white-haired old man's eyes flashed, and he opened the door silently, inviting Lin Shui to enter. After Lin Shui entered the house, she took out the divine ship. Ji Tianqing, Zhen Hong, and the others appeared in the house one after another. At this moment, the lights in the pitch-black courtyard gradually lit up. A young man in a golden dragon robe appeared from the dark hall, and he walked toward Ji Tianqing. "Young master, you came as promised. Seeing that you are safe and sound, I am finally relieved." Hearing this voice, Lin Shui was stunned. Seeing the face of the man in the golden robe, her eyes widened, and she was in disbelief. "Why is it him?" Chapter 3089. Lin Shui could not believe her eyes. Not only her, but Zhen Hong, Sir God Blood Illusion, and the others were also stunned. Then, the golden-robed man walked up to the crowd and greeted Ji Tianqing with a bow. "Third Prince, how have you been?" "Young Master Tianqing, everything is fine." "That's right." The person who was hiding in the house and waiting to receive Ji Tianqing was the third prince. After a long time, everyone came to their senses. Lin Shui looked at the third prince with a strange expression. She was full of questions and thought to herself, Tianqing just killed his father. Why isn't he sad at all? Not only did he not seek revenge on Tianqing, but he is also here to receive Tianqing. Could it be that he ordered Tianqing to kill the monarch? Isn't this too crazy? Lin Shui was shocked by this bold conjecture that popped up in her mind. Not only did Lin Shui have a strange expression, but Zhen Hong, Sir God Blood Illusion, and the others also looked at the third prince with a strange expression. At this time, the third prince and Ji Tianqing finished exchanging greetings and led everyone into the main hall. They did not discuss matters in the main hall. Instead, they entered a secret underground chamber through a secret door in the corner of the main hall. The secret chamber was not big, only about 30 feet in radius. But it was big enough to accommodate everyone. They sat around a table and discussed matters while drinking tea. The third prince sat at the head of the table and looked around at everyone. He showed a self-mocking smile and said, "I guess no one expected that I would be here to receive you, right?" Everyone was silent. Only Lin Shui nodded. The third prince didn't feel awkward and explained, "Actually, this is beyond reason, but it's also within expectations." Before the divine blood ceremony began, young Master Tianqing had already made up his mind. He wants to get rid of the fifth prince and help me ascend the throne. The divine kingdom has been stable for thousands of years. Everything is in order. There is no need for a schemer like the fifth prince. Moreover, the fifth prince is just a puppet of Prince Lien. The blood flame divine kingdom will also become a tool for Prince Lien's revenge. These twists and turns could not be discussed openly before. Now everyone should understand. As for me, I am indeed not shrewd or ambitious. In fact, I am somewhat indecisive. However, with the current situation of the God nation, it was indeed unable to withstand the storm of war. What it needed was a gentle ruler. In comparison, this prince is the best choice. Shui Lin was quite surprised and couldn't help but exclaim, "I originally thought that he only wanted the blood flame sacred tree. I didn't expect that he would dare to interfere with the succession of the monarch." The third prince nodded slightly. That's right. It was because of this that the monarch was determined to kill Tianqing. However, when the two of them were fighting, Tianqing realized that the king had no intention of abdicating. He just had other plans. But now that things have developed to that point, there's nothing we can do about it. We can only make the best of it. Lin Shui was stunned. "So, Tianqing killed the monarch?" she asked. Without waiting for Ji Tianqing to speak, the third prince took the initiative to explain, it wasn't Tianqing who wanted to kill the monarch. It was the monarch who refused to come to his senses and swore to kill Tianqing. Before that incident happened, Tianqing promised me that he would spare the monarch's life and would not harm the innocent people of Royal City. In fact, Tianqing fulfilled his promise. He gave the monarch a chance and did not harm the people of Royal City. When they heard this, Lin Shui, Zhen Hong, and the others already understood everything. There was no need for the third prince to explain the rest. Everyone was well aware. The monarch and the fifth prince were both killed by Ji Tianqing. As the saying went, a country could not be without a monarch for a day. The only princes who were qualified to succeed the monarch were the second prince and the third prince. Therefore, the two princes would think of ways to fight for the position of monarch. The most important thing was to succeed the monarch and stabilize the situation of the God nation. Everyone knew without asking that the third prince must have been busy with this matter in the past 3 days. There must have been a huge change in Royal City. Everyone fell into silence as they secretly speculated and pondered. Ji Tianqing looked at the third prince and asked, "There has been a lot of turmoil in Royal City in the past few days, right? Has it calmed down now?" The third prince nodded and said, "Since you split Royal City with your sword, the entire city has been in chaos. When this king rushed back to Monarch City, the city was already in a mess. All the forces took action as soon as they heard the news. The people were panicking and fleeing in all directions. Fortunately, the second prince and I took action in time and suppressed the chaos. Even so, we put in all our effort and spent 2 whole days to calm Monarch City down. Now there are many small disturbances, but no major ones. The obituary of the monarch's death has been sent to all the counties in the God nation. The whole nation will mourn for 3 days." At this point, the third prince looked apologetic and said to Ji Tianqing, "Tianqing, the entire royal city witnessed the scene of you seizing the bloody flame sacred tree and fighting the monarch. So, you can't wash away the crime of regicide. You can only bear it. You have done so much for me, but I have to announce to the world that I will treat you as an irreconcilable enemy. In the future, I'm afraid we will never be able to meet face to face. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said with a smile, there are gains and losses. Compared to helping you fulfill your wish, this is nothing. Besides, I didn't plan to stay in the bloody flame divine kingdom. I will be leaving soon. The third prince nodded slightly as a look of regret flashed in his eyes. He wanted to ask Ji Tianqing to stay, but he knew that it was impossible. The bloody flame divine kingdom was too small to accommodate Ji Tianqing, a divine dragon. Lin Shui saw the two of them sympathizing with each other and felt that it was ridiculous. She couldn't accept it and muttered with a strange expression, the whole kingdom is in mourning now. Billions of people think that Tianqing is a traitor who killed the monarch. Everyone has the right to punish him. If the people knew that the third prince, who threatened to tear Tianqing into pieces, was secretly meeting him here, I wonder how they would react. Hearing this, the third prince frowned and looked at her. He said with a calm expression, in this world, there are too many strange and ridiculous things that happen at any time and place. Others think it is ridiculous because they don't know the inside story and the twists and turns. The real reason is only known to the people involved. The monarch is my father. Logically speaking, he was killed by Tianqing. I should hate Tianqing and avenge my father. But how do you know that there is no such thing as family affection in the royal family? How cruel is the inside story of the royal family's war? Fortunately, Tianqing won this time. He killed the monarch and not the other way around. If he lost, the fifth prince would be crowned as the crown prince. The monarch would still be the monarch and the kingdom would still be prosperous and peaceful. But how can Ben Wang and second imperial brother survive? When the crowd heard this, they were all silent. Ji Tianqing saw the awkward atmosphere and changed the topic. He asked the third prince, since the situation in the kingdom is stabilizing, what is Prince Lian doing? How is the result of your fight with the second prince? You should have a 90% chance of becoming the monarch, right? Mobile version update website, M. Chapter 3090. What the third prince said earlier was the cause and process, as well as the inside story. However, what Ji Tianqing was asking about was the current situation and situation. This was what everyone was most concerned about, so they listened attentively. The third prince said, Prince Lian was severely injured by you and hasn't shown himself since. Even his subordinates are hiding in the royal city and haven't taken the opportunity to cause trouble. My guess is that his injuries are too severe and he's in a hurry to recuperate, so he doesn't have the chance to cause trouble. Moreover, the Great Yan Empire has also received an obituary of the monarch's death. The emperor even sent a letter to express his condolences. This means that the Great Yan Emperor is paying attention to this as well. Prince Lian doesn't dare to cause trouble. After a pause, the third prince looked as though he was relieved of a burden. He said, second brother has just returned to the royal city for 2 days. He was able to endure his injuries and stabilized the situation with me. After the situation in the royal city was stabilized, it should have been time for us to compete. However, his injuries suddenly worsened, and his life was almost in danger. Since then, he stayed in his residence to recuperate and hasn't shown himself since. Even his subordinates didn't stop me from seizing power. Everything went smoothly. If nothing unexpected happens, I'll be able to take control of the royal city and the royal court in half a month at most. After the monarch's funeral, I'll be able to ascend the throne. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, I'm relieved. The third prince sighed with emotion. Before this prince had fantasized countless times about being able to take over the throne and become the next monarch. However, every time I made a deduction, it was extremely dangerous. I had to go through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. I didn't expect things to go so smoothly. The throne came so easily. In fact, I feel like I'm dreaming now. After he finished speaking, he looked at Ji Tianqing with a burning gaze and said sincerely, Tianqing, I have to thank you for all of this. If it weren't for your help, I wouldn't be where I am today. In fact, without your help, second brother wouldn't have given in. Although he did not say it, he knew very well in his heart. The second prince's injuries suddenly worsened because of Ji Tianqing. During the battle, Ji Tianqing had secretly released a deadly poison. The monarch and many experts were poisoned, and the two of them were no exception. Ji Tianqing detonated the poison in the others and killed the monarch and many experts. Ji Tianqing was also the reason why the poison in his body hadn't acted up until now. If Ji Tianqing wanted to kill him, it would only take a single thought. The second prince's life was in danger because of the poison. Of course, he understood that this was Ji Tianqing's will. Ji Tianqing had made it clear that he supported the third prince to become the king. If the second prince did not want to die from the poison, he could only choose to back down. Was his life more important, or was his position more important? The second prince had already made his choice. It was just that everyone had a tacit understanding. Everything that needed to be discussed had been discussed. After that, Ji Tianqing began to instruct the third prince. First, he used a secret technique to help the third prince get rid of the poison in his body, completely eliminating the hidden danger. Then, he took out a translucent blood-red branch and gave it to the third prince. The blood flame secret realm has already been destroyed. I can't return the sacred tree to you. Only this blood sea stupa is the king's personal treasure. I'm returning it to you now. The third prince hurriedly took the blood sea stupa and examined it in his hands. So this is the legendary blood sea stupa. The founding monarch used the first branch of the sacred tree to refine a top-tier divine item. Although he was a prince, he had only heard of the blood sea stupa's existence. He had never seen it with his own eyes. Now that he had obtained this divine item, he couldn't help but observe it for a long time. After he put away the blood sea stupa, Ji Tianqing reminded him again, after this incident, the blood flame divine kingdom will be weak for many years. You will need to work hard and love the people to recover. Fortunately, the divine kingdom has accumulated enough resources for 10,000 years. Even if it loses the sacred tree, it won't affect it too much. Also, you have to think carefully about how to deal with the second prince. After this failure, he might not be able to recover from this setback and be disheartened in the future. But with his temperament, it's more likely that he won't be convinced and will harbor resentment toward you and me. You have to suppress his faction and keep an eye on it. You mustn't let it develop as it pleases. Otherwise, you'll only be asking for trouble and harming him. The third prince hastily nodded and said, Thank you for your advice, young master. I'll remember it. The enmity between Great Yan's emperor and Prince Lian is the best example. I won't repeat the same mistake. The two of them chatted for a while longer before they rose to their feet and bade each other farewell. The third prince cupped his fists and said, Young master, it's absolutely safe here. You can rest assured and recuperate here until you've recovered. I have too many things to do after this. I'm afraid I won't have the time to see you again. If there's any trouble or inconvenience, just send me a message. I'll do my best to help. Ji Tianqing nodded and said, I'll have to trouble you then. I don't know when we'll meet again after today. I hope you'll stay true to your heart and see things through. The third prince bowed deeply and said nothing more. He bade farewell and left. However, when he reached the door of the hidden chamber, he suddenly remembered something and stopped in his tracks. He turned to look back and smiled inexplicably. He said to Ji Tianqing, Oh, right, I almost forgot about something. Someone insisted on coming with me. She's waiting for you in the parlor in the backyard. Naturally, you can choose not to meet her. After tonight, she'll leave. After saying this, the third prince left without looking back. He left with an inexplicable smile and a complicated look in his eyes. The hidden chamber fell silent. Everyone's eyes were trained on Ji Tianqing. Cough, cough. Why are all of you looking at me? Ji Tianqing pretended to cough and said sternly, "It's safe here. All of you can rest here for a while." Lin Shui looked at him with a playful smile and waved her hand to interrupt him. "Don't be in a hurry to change the topic, lad. Which woman did you provoke this time? She actually chased you all the way here." Zhenhong guessed the answer and almost blurted it out. However, he forced himself to hold it back. Left emissary Jean saw that the atmosphere was a little awkward, so he quickly tried to smooth things over. "Sect leader, you can't say that about young Master Tianqing. With young Master Tianqing's appearance, talent, and temperament, he'll be a dragon among men wherever he goes. Of course, he'll be loved by thousands of women. Even if many women are infatuated with him, that's human nature. Besides, maybe that woman is just his friend." Ji Tianqing looked deeply at left emissary Jean and nodded. "Well, Xiao Jin is still the one who understands and thinks thoroughly. What he said makes sense. Anyway, all of you can choose a hidden chamber to rest in." After saying this, he ignored Lin Shui's hateful look and got up to leave the hidden chamber. Not long after, he walked through the courtyard and came to the parlor in the dark night. He saw a slim figure standing alone in the night, looking at the garden outside the window in a daze. Mobile version update website, M. Chapter 3091. That graceful figure in silver armor was none other than Ning Siyuan. Back then, after the arena tournament ended. After Ji Tianqing and Zhenhong entered the Blood Flame's secret realm, she returned to the Longwind courtyard and waited patiently for news. However, 2 days later, Ji Tianqing did not return. Instead, she saw the palace activating its defensive array. Ji Tianqing and the monarch were facing off against each other and were besieged by countless imperial guards and palace experts. Later, Ji Tianqing broke through the palace's array and slashed Monarch City with his sword. He then escaped from the city and disappeared without a trace. Ever since then, Ning Siyuan had been living in worry and anxiety. She had also escaped from the chaotic Monarch City and chased after him for tens of thousands of miles. However, she was too weak and was left behind without a trace. She could not find any trace of Ji Tianqing and the others. Helpless, she could only return to Monarch City and wait for news. Fortunately, the third prince returned to Monarch City half a day later. She dragged her aunt to find the third prince and pestered him tirelessly, asking about what happened and Ji Tianqing's whereabouts. In the end, the third prince could not resist her persistence. He could only promise to bring her to Slanting Wind City to see Ji Tianqing again. At this time, she had been waiting in the flower pavilion for half the night. She had been excited before, but she had already calmed down. She was in a daze. The scenes in Qingshan City and Tianxue County City flashed through her mind. It had only been a few months, but things had changed. The changes were too great. Compared to the surging waves and changing winds now, she missed the calm and tranquility of the past more. Just as she was immersed in her thoughts, she sighed with emotion. Ji Tianqing walked into the flower pavilion. Looking at her back, he said, "I'm sorry to have kept Miss Ning waiting." Ning Siyuan immediately woke up. She suppressed her complicated thoughts and turned to look at Ji Tianqing. Seeing Ji Tianqing, who was 3 steps away from her, looking as handsome as ever with a mysterious and reserved temperament, her hanging heart finally settled down. At the very least, Ji Tianqing was still safe and sound after experiencing such a shocking storm. That was the greatest blessing. Ning Siyuan bowed slightly and said, "Greetings to Gongzi Tianqing. It's great that you're safe and sound. Sorry for making you worry." Ji Tianqing smiled. Regardless of the distance between the two of them or their demeanor and tone, they remained polite and courteous. However, there was an invisible distance between them. After a moment of silence, Ning Siyuan asked, "Dare I ask, young master, what do you plan to do next?" Ji Tianqing didn't hide anything and answered honestly, "I'll recuperate here first. After I've recovered, I'll leave Blood Flame Divine Country and head south." Ning Siyuan frowned slightly and said worriedly, "Doesn't that mean we have to pass through the Great Yan Empire?" Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "That's where I want to go. I have some things to investigate." Ning Siyuan vaguely guessed something and asked, "Is it the matter you asked us to help you investigate?" Ji Tianqing nodded slightly. Ning Siyuan became even more worried and said, "But you have a deep feud with Prince Lien. I'm afraid it'll be very dangerous for you to go to the Great Yan Empire." "It's okay." Ji Tianqing shook his head. "Then. Okay." Ning Siyuan stopped persuading him and said, "The Great Yan Empire is full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. It's not like Blood Flame Divine Country, which is remote. When you're in the Great Yan Empire, you have to be careful. Don't be reckless. No matter how far you go, there will be people who will worry about you." Ji Tianqing smiled and thanked him. Then, he asked, "When do you plan to clear things up with Qi Huanji?" Ning Siyuan was taken aback. He said hesitantly, "Let's wait a few more days. When the turmoil in the Divine Country is over and the third prince is free, it'll be better to ask him to deal with it. By then, the third prince would be the king." With the king's golden words, helping Ning Siyuan and Qi Huanji to cancel the engagement would not hurt the Qi family's reputation too much. Moreover, given the third prince's character and style, he would definitely compensate the Qi family heavily. In this way, the Qi family would be comforted and accounted for. Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "Since you've thought about it so thoroughly, I have nothing to worry about. I thank you on behalf of the Qi family." "You don't have to be so polite, young master." Ning Siyuan quickly shook her head. After hesitating for a while, she asked in a complicated tone, "If I may be so bold as to ask, young master, is it possible for you to come back in the future?" Ji Tianqing thought for a while and shook his head. "Who can predict what will happen in the future? Maybe I will come back, but that will be thousands or tens of thousands of years later." The light in Ning Siyuan's eyes dimmed, and he felt an inexplicable pain in his heart. However, she suppressed her emotions and tried hard to remain calm. Her eyes did not turn misty. She forced a smile and said, "That's right. The Blood Flame Divine Kingdom is a small place after all. Young master will definitely spread his wings and fly high in the future, roaming the world. Siyuan wishes young master a smooth journey in advance. I hope young master will be able to soar into the 9 heavens and meet with the wind and clouds." Ji Tianqing looked at her and asked, "Thank you, Miss Ning. Then, shall we bid farewell?" Ning Siyuan was silent for a while before she bowed deeply and said in a choked voice, "I will never forget young master's kindness for the rest of my life. The mountains are high and the rivers are long. I hope we will meet again." After saying that, she suppressed the tears in her eyes and walked away with her head lowered. When she brushed past Ji Tianqing, she could no longer suppress the sadness in her heart. 2 drops of crystal-clear tears fell from the corners of her eyes. Ji Tianqing stood in place and watched her leave in a hurry. After a long time, when her figure disappeared into the night, Ji Tianqing sighed silently. Sigh. If I hadn't fallen in love back then, I wouldn't be so sad now. Regarding this, he was helpless. There was nothing he could do but sigh. As soon as his voice fell, a faint voice sounded in his ear. "You're such a hypocrite. If you didn't want to see her sad, why did you provoke her? Besides, she's a girl and can't open her mouth. Why didn't you take the initiative to take her away?" Following the voice, a reddish-purple figure landed beside Ji Tianqing, bringing along a fragrant wind. Ji Tianqing didn't need to look back to know it was Lin Shui. He gently shook his head and said, "Your words are biased. I never took the initiative to approach her, let alone pursue her. How could I provoke her?" Lin Shui curled her lips and said, "Even if you didn't pursue her, you're too outstanding and dazzling. You appeared in front of her and even helped her. That's provoking." Ji Tianqing was helpless. "Okay, you win." Lin Shui showed a mocking smile and asked, "You knew she was interested in you, so why didn't you take the initiative to invite her and take her away from the blood flame divine kingdom? Are you afraid that this old lady and that Zhenhong girl will be jealous? Don't worry, this old lady isn't such a petty person. It's normal for a playboy like you to have 3 wives and 4 concubines." Before she could finish, Ji Tianqing furrowed his brows and glared at her. "Why are you and that Zhenhong girl jealous? We're just friends. Friends, understand? Don't always talk nonsense and make people think we have some kind of ambiguous relationship." Not only was Lin Shui not angry, but she also took the opportunity to stick to him and whispered with a charming look, "This old lady can't figure it out. Are you willing?" Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. Chapter 3092. Ji Tianqing hurriedly took 2 steps back to avoid Lin Shui. He stared at her with a serious face and said in a serious tone, "You'd better put away this dangerous idea, or my wives won't let you off." Lin Shui was still smiling and said in a mocking tone, "I already guessed that you have wives, but I didn't expect you to confess so quickly. However, just because your wives aren't happy doesn't mean that you'll refuse." As she spoke, she leaned forward again and stretched out her arm to Ji Tianqing's neck. Ji Tianqing retreated again and said helplessly with a frown, "Okay, then I'll make it clear. I treat you as a friend, so don't have any ideas about me, or it'll be difficult for us to be friends. Moreover, don't you feel guilty about being an old cow eating young grass?" "Humph." Lin Shui pretended to be angry and snorted coldly. She said angrily, "In the end, you just think that I'm old. I'm only a little over 1,000 years old. Compared to a lifespan of more than 100,000 years, I'm still young, understand? You always look at gods with the eyes of mortals, why can't you let it go?" Ji Tianqing couldn't do anything about her and could only change the topic. "I think that God Monarch Blood Fantasy is very infatuated with you, why don't you consider him?" "Tsk." Lin Shui rolled her eyes and said disdainfully, "Even if I give him a chance, would he dare? Don't try to change the topic, he and I can only be considered friends, I have no interest in him at all. I just want to eat young grass like you, don't even think about escaping." Ji Tianqing was completely at his wit's end. He felt that if he continued to be entangled with Lin Shui, he would definitely vomit blood. Fortunately, Zhenhong arrived at the flower hall in time. She pretended not to hear Lin Shui's words and greeted the 2 of them. She said respectfully, "Young master, everyone has gone to rest. Your injuries haven't healed, you should go into seclusion to heal as soon as possible. Zhenhong has already prepared a secret room, please go there now." "Okay," Ji Tianqing nodded, very satisfied with Zhenhong's timely rescue, and took her out of the flower hall. Shui Lin watched them leave with a playful smile on her face. However, after Ji Tianqing and Zhenhong left, she put away her frivolous attitude and returned to normal. "Maybe I've really wronged him. After interacting with him for a few days, he really didn't see him overstep his boundaries. But why are those little girls so infatuated with him?" After muttering to herself, Shui Lin collected her thoughts and said to herself, "Time reveals a person's true nature. It's only been a few days, but it's just a glimpse of the big picture. After I observe him for a few more years, I will definitely be able to see through the truth." After that, Shui Lin raised her chin proudly, turned around and disappeared into the darkness. In the following month. For the Blood Flame Divine Country, it was a month of intense turmoil and turning points. The king passed away, and the royal family held a solemn funeral. The entire divine nation was filled with grief and mourned for several days. Following which, numerous important officials and officials of the imperial court requested the royal family to appoint a new monarch as soon as possible. After all, a country couldn't go a day without a ruler. After weighing the pros and cons, the royal family agreed to this request and let everyone discuss who was more suitable. Most of the important officials and officials of the imperial court expressed their support for the third prince. Although a small number of them openly supported the second prince, the majority agreed. In the end, the royal family announced that the third prince would succeed the throne. Just like that, the third prince didn't even need to be crowned as the crown prince and became the new monarch. The new monarch had to choose an auspicious day and hold a complicated and solemn ceremony. After the new monarch succeeded the throne, the entire country celebrated for 7 days. Even the emperor of the Great Yan Empire had sent a congratulatory letter and a generous gift. After the succession of the monarch, the new monarch issued many more edicts. Most of them were about the dismissal and appointment of the various counties and cities. Many people who didn't do anything were replaced and many capable people were promoted. This had a big impact on the various counties and cities. However, the divine nation's overall situation was stable. Even if there were some disturbances and turbulence, they would be resolved quickly. These were all things that were on the surface. Secretly, the second prince had lost to the third prince and was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. After all, the person who had defeated him was not the third prince but Ji Tianqing. He still believed that if not for Ji Tianqing's help, the third prince would not be his match. Even though he was poisoned and had to give up the throne because of the threat to his life, he was still unwilling. But in his heart, he was still unwilling to accept it. He was also unwilling to accept the third prince. After he recovered from his injuries, he secretly gathered his forces to resist the third prince's suppression and purges. In addition, he also planned to leave the imperial court and hide at the border of the divine nation. As long as he controlled a few counties at the border, he would be able to protect himself and be qualified to negotiate with the third prince. In the future, when the third prince wanted to kill him, he could even declare himself king. But it was a pity. The second prince's plan had just started, but it was stopped by the third prince. After Ji Tianqing's reminder, the third prince had already made arrangements in secret. Late at night, the key people under the second prince's command were all captured in one fell swoop. The third prince brought a few of his trusted subordinates to meet the second prince. No one knew what the two brothers talked about in the secret room. After 2 hours, the third prince left. The next day, the third prince announced the edict in front of everyone in the imperial court. The third prince was given the title of Prince of Peace, for cities in the Blood Flame County as his fief, and a death exemption talisman, guaranteeing him a lifetime of wealth. However, he was stripped of his position as general of the imperial cavalry, stripped of all his power, and no longer appointed to an official position. When this edict was spread throughout the divine nation, everyone understood that the expected internal strife would not happen. The second prince had already lost. He was stripped of his right to resist by the third prince, and could only stay in the Blood Flame County for the rest of his life as a carefree prince. This was the best outcome for the people of the divine nation. At this point, the turmoil that lasted for a month finally ended. Everyone's attention was focused on the two princes and the imperial court. Everyone neglected one person. Prince Lian, who was ordered to guard the Blood Flame divine nation and act as the voice of the empire, never appeared. It was as if he had disappeared into thin air, without any sense of existence. At the same time, Ji Tianqing, Lin Shui, and the rest also recuperated and adjusted their breathing for a month in that courtyard in Slanting Wind City. Lin Shui, Zhen Hong, left emissary Jin, and the rest all healed their injuries, and their strength reached their peak state. God Monarch Blood Illusion's harvest was great, and he was incomparably surprised. After Ji Tianqing's injuries healed, he indeed fulfilled his promise. He cut off a branch from the sacred tree, and using the method of replacing the dead tree with the dead tree, he helped God Monarch Blood Illusion reconstruct his divine body. This way, God Monarch Blood Illusion directly reached level 8 Divine Lord Realm. He also possessed a supreme-grade Monarch-level body, his power and defense were both very powerful, and he even had some special effects. He was very satisfied with this, and was also grateful to Ji Tianqing, swearing to follow him wholeheartedly in the future. As for Ji Tianqing, his harvest in this month exceeded everyone's imagination. Chapter 3093. Even though only a month had passed in the outside world. But Ji Tianqing had been in the Divine Pagoda's distorted spacetime all along and spent a full 4 years and 2 months. In the first 2 years, he had been circulating his energy to heal his injuries. He consumed several tens of thousands of source stones, divine pills worth 200 million, and resources. Coupled with his powerful recovery ability, he healed his injuries and recovered to his peak state. Following that, he took out a large number of divine spark fragments and started devouring and refining them. Among them, there were not just country monarchs, there were also more than a dozen high-ranked divine lords and many imperial experts' divine spark fragments. A total of more than 40 people's divine spark fragments, all of them had strength above 5th level divine lord realm. Each powerhouse's divine spark fragments contained hundreds of divine Tao laws. Ji Tianqing's gains were very astonishing. After he refined more than 40 divine spark fragments, he actually stripped away 36 types of divine Tao laws. They were basically all divine lord level laws, only a small number of celestial god level laws. Each type of divine Tao law made Ji Tianqing's strength increase greatly. The number of divine Tao laws he possessed had reached 251 types at this point. His strength was also very close to 6th level divine lord realm. Following that, he took out that blood flame sacred tree from the heaven-mending pearl and transplanted it into the distorted spacetime. The massive blood flame sacred tree stood tall in the distorted spacetime, emitting endless red light and blood flame. Yun Yao, Ji Ku, White Dragon, Wushuang, and the rest all received tremendous benefits because of this, the speed of their strength increasing greatly. After settling down the blood flame sacred tree, Ji Tianqing saw that there was still a large cluster of blood flame and divine power stored in the heaven-mending pearl. That was the sacred tree power that he devoured with the heaven-mending pearl before he moved away the sacred tree. Hence, he quickly devoured those sacred tree powers again, increasing his strength. This cultivation took more than a year's time again. After he refined all of the power of those divine trees, he himself would also naturally succeed when the conditions were right, breaking through to the 6th level divine lord realm. His present combat strength was several times stronger than before. Ji Tianqing ended his cultivation in satisfaction and left the distorted spacetime. He had been meditating in the secret chamber for a day when he heard Zhen Hong's voice outside the door. Reporting to young master, everyone has finished their closed-door cultivation. Let me invite you out, Ji Tianqing replied, okay. Then, he got up and left the secret room. Zhen Hong led him into the main hall, where everyone was already waiting. The first to look at Ji Tianqing and greet him was, of course, Lin Shui. Then it was Sir God Blood Illusion. At this moment, he was no longer a ball of bloody light like before. He turned into a tall and thin middle-aged man with dark skin that was tinged with red. He wore a long black robe and a square scarf hat. He had a long beard on his chin and was dressed like a middle-aged scholar. They looked like Ji Tianqing's entourage and butler. After nearly 10 days of recuperation, he had completely adapted to his new body and regained his former confidence. His entire temperament was no longer gloomy and indifferent. Instead, it was more steady and capable. As for Zhen Hong, left emissary Jin and Blood Dragon right emissary, they did not change much. Everyone looked at Ji Tianqing with sparkling eyes, sizing him up with amazement. I haven't seen you for a month. Not only have you recovered from your injuries, but you have also become more handsome. Lin Shui sized up Ji Tianqing and muttered with doubt, could it be that the magical power you have cultivated is to become more and more handsome and specifically attract women? Ji Tianqing could not help but glare at her. Everyone also covered their faces and chuckled. Zhenhong said in all seriousness, although young master doesn't seem to have changed, your aura is more powerful. Maybe your magical power has improved again and you have broken through to the next realm. Hearing her say so, the others hurriedly nodded in agreement. Lin Shui frowned again and asked with doubt, weren't you a high-level Sir God a long time ago? Why are you still breaking through to the next realm in these few months? You don't look like you have broken through to the Divine King realm. We can only cultivate to the 9th level Divine Lord realm at most. Could it be that you can cultivate to the 15th level? Ji Tianqing was speechless again and could not resist rolling his eyes. Where do you get so many fantastic ideas? And all these ridiculous words? After this period of contact, everyone did not feel awkward seeing the two of them bickering. Everyone snickered to no end. Lin Shui glared at him with a displeased look and asked crossly, then you explain to us, what in the world is going on with you? Ji Tianqing said very frankly, truth be told, back then when I helped you all eradicate the Blood Sword sect, I was still a low-level Sir God. Even until today, I'm only a peak middle-level Sir God and still far from high-level Sir God. Hearing these words, everyone was instantly dumbfounded. Everyone was dumbstruck, as if they were petrified statues. They stared straight at Ji Tianqing, unable to say a word. This news was even more terrifying than the sudden collapse of the great Yan Empire. After a long time, everyone gradually regained their senses. Lin Shui curled her lips crossly and said, forget it if you don't want to tell your secret. Why make up such a lie to deceive us? Sir God Blood Illusion, Left Emissary Jean, and Blood Dragon Right Emissary also had the same thoughts and kept silent. Ji Tianqing spread his hands helplessly and said with a light smile, see, you all don't believe me even if I tell you the truth. Don't get to the bottom of it in the future. Only Zhenhong nodded his head with a serious look and said, I believe that young master is telling the truth and this is the only reasonable explanation. Reasonable my ass. Lin Shui could not help but retorted, he's still a low-level Sir God and can destroy the Blood Sword sect and kill the 7th stage realm Lin Shan. This is called reasonable. Zhenhong choked and said weakly, young master's talent is extraordinary and his aptitude is outstanding. This is also understandable. Lin Shui was very helpless and reprimanded in disappointment, lass, what kind of bewitching soup did he feed you? Why are you so bewitched? Zhenhong frowned and instinctively wanted to refute but didn't know where to start. Ji Tianqing stared at Lin Shui in displeasure and said, you demoness, why do you want to bully everyone? Aren't we going to talk about serious matters? Lin Shui then dropped the subject. Ji Tianqing looked at the crowd and said solemnly, the previous storm should have been resolved after a month of settling down. It's time for us to leave Blood Flame Divine Kingdom and continue heading south. I want to remind everyone that we are a team. No matter what danger or opportunity we encounter, we must be united. Otherwise, it will be hard for us to walk too far and we will be split up. Originally, he wanted to tell everyone. He had brought along his wife and disciples and he was shouldering the lives of hundreds of millions of people. With such a heavy responsibility on him, he would definitely be cautious and not act rashly. But he thought for a moment and didn't say these words. These secrets were not suitable for too many people to know. Only after passing through various tests would everyone become his true friends. For example, Zhenhong was the first person to pass the test. Lin Shui was currently considered half. Chapter 3094. Early in the morning, the sun rose. Ji Tianqing and the rest boarded Lin Shui's ship and left Slanting Wind City. The situation was as Ji Tianqing had expected. Under the third prince's deliberate downplaying and shifting of the target, slanting wind city was very peaceful. Those city guards guarded the city as usual and did not enforce martial law at all. Following that, Ji Tianqing and the rest headed south and passed by many counties and cities. All the cities were calm and tranquil, and no one was searching for the murderer of the monarch. Naturally, Lin Xue's ship was also unimpeded. For a month, they passed through 7 counties and did not encounter any trouble or danger. Along the way, left emissary Jin and right emissary Blood Dragon worked together to control the divine ship. Ji Tianqing, Lin Xue, Zhen Hong, Xue Huan, and the rest all stayed in their rooms to meditate and cultivate. Xue Huan did not appear much and had been busy adapting to his new divine body and cultivating some divine abilities that he had never cultivated before. Lin Xue had nothing to do and would always run to Ji Tianqing's room to disturb him. One moment, she would chat with him and the next moment, she would ask him questions. Ji Tianqing was so annoyed that he could only criticize her with righteous words. Don't think that just because you broke through to the 8th level of the divine sovereign realm, you are the strongest among us. You just broke through not long ago and your divine Tao foundation is not stable. Even the divine ability you've cultivated hasn't reached the point of perfection. Once we encounter danger, what will you use to protect everyone and help me? Lin Xue was a little dazed from being lectured and subconsciously asked, "What do you want to do?" Ji Tianqing said with a straight face, "If you have so much free time, you should cultivate properly and consolidate your divine Tao foundation. Also, the 1,000-star flying moon, illusory blood heavenly blade, and these divine abilities that you cultivate have flaws and must be improved." He pointed out the flaws of several divine abilities and told her how to improve them. Lin Xue was stunned by him and her eyes were filled with surprise. She pouted angrily and muttered, "So be it, why are you so fierce?" Then, under Ji Tianqing's stern gaze, she turned and left unhappily. From then on, she really stayed in the secret room to cultivate and never disturb Ji Tianqing again. This made Ji Tianqing secretly happy, thinking that he would use this trick to deal with Xue Lin in the future. But his happiness didn't last long. And NBS friends, please prompt, pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. A month later, Xue Lin came to him excitedly. "Kid, I've fixed all the flaws in the divine abilities you mentioned. Can you help me take a look and see if there are any problems?" She didn't care about anything else as she sat beside Ji Tianqing and focused on casting her divine ability. Ji Tianqing was very helpless. He pulled her sleeve and reminded her, "Hey, if you think there's no problem, then it's fine. You don't need me to help you." Xue Lin hurriedly stopped and frowned. "All right, then can you help me take a look and see if there are any other techniques that need improvement?" Ji Tianqing pointed at his feet and said, "Can we talk about this later? We're at the border of the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom. We're about to pass through the God-burying mountain range. Everyone needs to be careful." Seeing his serious expression and serious tone, Xue Lin gave up the idea. "All right, then we'll talk about it later." After all, she also knew that the God-burying mountain range was an extremely dangerous place. Even a divine monarch powerhouse might die if they encountered danger in the mountain range. This mountain range with a radius of tens of millions of miles was located between the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom and the Raging Flame Divine Kingdom. It was a natural division of power. At the same time, it was also one of the most dangerous forbidden areas in the surrounding divine kingdoms. Tens of thousands of years ago, countless ancient divine beasts lived in this dangerous mountain range. There were all kinds of fierce and powerful beasts. There were even some rare races left from the ancient era that hid in the depths of the mountain range. 10,000 years ago, the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom rose up. The God-burying mountain range became a buffer between the 3 divine kingdoms. Many vicious divine race powerhouses that were hunted by various divine kingdoms also escaped into the God-burying mountain range. Some hid in seclusion, while others built their forces and formed henchmen. As a result, the divine race that passed through the god-burying mountain range not only had to endure the attacks of ancient divine beasts, but they also had to be on guard against the persecution of the vicious divine race. Over time, the god-burying mountain range's notoriety spread far and wide, and it became a forbidden area. Ji Tianqing had already investigated the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom and the entire Great Yan Empire. He didn't know the god-burying mountain range like the back of his hand, but he was quite clear about it. Of course, Xue Lin knew this too. When she left the Celestial Beast Empire and came to the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom, she had also passed through the god-burying mountain range. She had encountered many dangers in the depths of the mountain range. Therefore, she didn't know. Take care of your eyes after reading for a long time. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. She didn't dare to let down her guard. However, she didn't have any intention of leaving. She sat beside Ji Tianqing and released her divine sense to observe the situation ahead. Ji Tianqing had no choice but to persuade him, "Hey, go tell everyone to stop cultivating for now. We're about to pass through the god-burying mountain range. Tell everyone to stay alert." "I'm not, hey. Call me, sister." Xue Lin glared at him before getting up and leaving. Then she went to the secret rooms and woke up everyone who was still cultivating. Ji Tianqing was still sitting in the secret room, silently releasing his divine sense to check the surroundings. The sun was setting in the west. The divine ship was like a jet of black light, cutting through the white sea of clouds and heading south. Under the sea of clouds was the vast god-burying mountain range. As far as the eye could see, there were dark green mountains thousands of feet tall, exuding a vast and powerful aura. Between the mountain peaks were deep valleys and ravines. Flocks of divine birds were constantly flying through the mountains. In the distance, the roars of beasts kept coming. In the first few hours, they were still at the edge of the god-burying mountain range and weren't too dangerous. However, in the middle of the night, the divine ship entered the heart of the mountain range and entered the dangerous area. The birds and beasts all around disappeared. Under the night sky, the mountains appeared especially quiet. Suddenly, Ji Tianqing's divine sense detected hundreds of dangerous auras hiding in the mountains in front of them, to the left, and to the right. This result made him more awake. He frowned and revealed a vigilant look. Could it be that we've encountered an ambush? He used divine sense to investigate carefully again and discovered that those several hundred hibernating divine power fluctuations were not divine race powerhouses. They were all kinds of strange divine beasts and mutated beasts. The number was as many as 300 over. They were basically all at the 9th level celestial deity realm or 1st or 2nd level divine lord realm strength. Although Ji Tianqing had long known that there were massive numbers of divine beasts living in the god-burying mountain range. But the current situation was very abnormal. Those divine lord realm divine beasts were all leaders of their respective beast packs. They should be very proud. How could they possibly gather together? Furthermore, several hundred divine beasts were getting along peacefully, hibernating in the dark, appearing well-trained. This was most likely controlled by a powerhouse, right? Chapter 3095. By the time Ji Tianqing figured out the situation, they were only 10,000 miles away from the divine beasts. At this moment, the 300-odd divine beasts seemed to have received an order. They no longer lay dormant and flew out of the darkness, charging into the sky as fast as lightning. The 300-odd divine beasts spread out in a fan-shaped formation. Each divine beast was 10 miles apart, forming an encirclement that was more than 3,000 miles wide. Their target was obvious. They were coming for the divine warship. The left emissary Jin and right emissary Blood Dragon also discovered the group of divine beasts and were shocked. If they continued to fly forward, they would plunge into the encirclement of the divine beasts. The most important thing now was to stop the divine warship and change its direction to avoid them. The two of them hurriedly cast spells to control the array of the divine warship. However, this required some time. The divine warship also continued to fly forward for a long time due to its huge inertia. This caused the divine warship and the divine beasts to get closer. Swoosh! After 3 breaths, the divine warship finally stopped moving forward and turned to fly northwest, trying to avoid the divine beasts. However, the divine beasts were only 3,000 miles away from the divine warship. In the night sky in the northwest direction, more than a dozen dazzling beams of divine light suddenly lit up. They condensed into light blades that could split heaven and earth and slash down. Swoosh! 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 Each light blade was 10,000 feet long and carried the power to destroy everything as it enveloped a radius of 100 miles. The divine warship could not dodge in time and was immediately drowned by the divine light. Boom! 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 A deafening explosion reverberated between heaven and earth, breaking the silence of the night. The black divine warship, which was 10,000 feet long, trembled from the bombardment and was on the verge of collapse. Even though the divine warship did not suffer any substantial damage. However, 2 layers of the defensive array on the surface were destroyed, and more than a dozen divine cannons on both sides were also broken. This result made Lin Shui realize that the dozen over people who attacked were all divine lord realm powerhouses. Moreover, they were all at least middle-level divine lords. Swoosh! The divine warship shook violently for dozens of times before it stabilized in the night sky. Ji Tianqing, Lin Shui, Zhen Hong, and the others were all startled awake. Everyone stood in the meeting hall and used their divine senses to observe the situation outside. More than 300 divine beasts were rapidly approaching from the south. When they were 100 miles away from the divine warship, they all stopped advancing and began to close in on the encirclement. In the northern night sky, there were also 13 figures flying over. They were 13 Sir God powerhouses. There were men and women, old and young, and they all had different appearances and attire. The strongest person in the lead was a burly man who was 10 meters tall and looked like a tall tower. This person was from the 4-winged god race. He had 4 dark red bone wings on his back. His hands and feet were like the sharp claws of a ferocious beast. His entire body was dark red, and he wore black armor with a large purple cape draped over his shoulders. A huge bald head shone brightly in the night, flickering with dark red blood light. This person's divine power was incomparably violent. His aura was as vigorous as the sea, causing people to be intimidated at the sight of him. Shui Lin could not help but frown. She whispered to the crowd, "That Baldy is much stronger than me. I'm in the 8th stage realm and he should be in the 9th stage realm." Everyone was silent. They used their divine senses to size up the other 12 people. The 12 Sir Gods with different appearances were all lined up in a row in the sky. There was a white-haired old man, a middle-aged man who was as strong as a bear, a good-looking woman, and 2 unruly youths. The 3 strongest people were in the 8th stage of the Sir God realm. The 5 weakest people were in the 6th stage of the Sir God realm. These 13 Sir God powerhouses were a very powerful force. None of the major sects and forces in the Bloody Blaze Divine Kingdom had such a luxurious lineup. Lin Shui frowned and thought for a while. She instantly guessed the answer. They should be from the Heavenly Sect. Only the number 1 Sir God realm, the Heavenly Sect, has such a terrifying force. Upon hearing this answer, Zhen Hong, Shui Huan, left emissary Jin, and the others were all fearful. Their expressions became very solemn. The Heavenly Sect. The number 1 sect in the Divine Kingdom. I heard that the Heavenly Sect is different from us. They are one of the top forces in the entire Great Yan Empire. That's right. These people should be from the Bloody Blaze Divine Kingdom's branch. Apart from the Bloody Blaze Divine Kingdom, the Heavenly Sect has branches in all the other Divine Kingdoms. Just as everyone was discussing animatedly, Ji Tianqing's figure flashed and left the divine warship, flying into the night sky. He stood in front of the divine warship and looked at the people from the heavenly sect expressionlessly. The gazes of the 13 Sir God powerhouses immediately gathered on him. The corners of many people's mouths and eyes revealed mocking sneers. At the same time, the last trace of doubt in everyone's hearts was immediately dispelled. Before Ji Tianqing appeared, they were all somewhat worried in their hearts. What if the target of the ambush was wrong? What if the target was not in that divine warship? Now, the facts proved that the sect master was very wise. Both sides looked at each other and were silent for a while. The bald Sir God in the lead opened his mouth and said in a powerful voice, "Let me introduce myself. I am Long Fun, the current sect master of the heavenly sect's Bloody Blaze branch. Sir, I have been waiting for you here for a long time." Ji Tianqing was expressionless as he said in a cold tone, "You are indeed from the heavenly sect. Where is Prince Lien? Why is he nowhere to be seen when you are lying in ambush here? Could it be that he is afraid of me and does not dare to show himself because he is afraid of losing his life?" The bald Long Fun was not angry and said with a calm expression, "To tell you the truth, the young prince was seriously injured and has been in seclusion to recuperate. He has not come out yet. However, the young prince missed you too much and expected that you would quietly escape the Bloody Blaze divine kingdom after the limelight passed. So, the little prince specially instructed this seat to wait for you here." At this point, Long Fun grinned coldly and said, "The young prince repeatedly instructed me not to leave you alive. No matter what, I must kill you. Even if we die together, we will still profit." It was obvious that Prince Lien had given the order to kill. Long Fun and the 12 heavenly sect powerhouses all bore a heavy responsibility. Even if they had to die together with Ji Tianqing, they had to complete the mission. Ji Tianqing nodded and said with an indifferent expression, "I have long expected this day and knew that I could not avoid it. Since you are so upright, I admire you very much and will send you to the Yellow Springs. As for those ugly and dirty divine beasts, let them all go. They are just a bunch of cannon fodder and will only dirty my hands." Long Fun raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "The master of those divine beasts is not me. You should talk to the left protector." As his voice fell, a black-robed old woman with a snake-headed walking stick walked out from behind him. This old woman is Yu, also known as Granny Beast Tamer. "Greetings, young Master Tianqing." Granny Beast Tamer bowed slightly and said with a dry and hoarse voice, "Those divine beasts are my friends and I see them as my nephews. Young Master despises them so much because you are afraid that they will tear you to pieces. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.